In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Councillor Gremlich.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Okay, first up, we have our delegations. And it is Molly. Come on up. If you can say your full name and address into the mic, or just say you're with the MD. And that's good enough. And then the floor is yours.
Yeah, Molly Fighton. I'm a new director with the MD of Lesser Slave River. So just brief background, because I know I'm limited in time. I've been doing some contract work with the commission, which as you know, consists of councillors from both the town and the MD. So the proposal I have in front of you today is in regards to a new waste and recycling ambassador position that has been explored with the commission and the MD itself. And the reason we're bringing this forward is because there is a number of current initiatives and projects taking place in the waste and recycling management world within our communities right now, and a lot of upcoming initiatives such as extended producer responsibility, the EPR program, which I realize both the town and the MD through the commission are registered for through the program. So we've proposed a position that could handle a lot of our current and upcoming programs, help enhance them in terms of what we're looking at working on collaboratively as a region and as individual communities. So we're proposing a pilot program that would be shared in terms of resources for 4 entities. So one of the entities would be the commission itself, but then also the MD and the town and Athabasca Regional Waste Management Services Commission, which we work collaboratively on certain projects, especially through the commission. And there's potential as well to include Sawridge First Nation as well. So they're on the list of who I'll be talking to as well about this position. But ultimately, we would look at cost sharing for this position and then share the resources throughout the 1-year pilot. After that 1 period, we would bring it back to the table for further discussion to see if this is something we'd like to pursue year round. So I know you don't have the details in front of you, but I'll just kind of highlight some of the main duties this position would be responsible for. So a main duty would be education and outreach for both residents and businesses. A big focus would be on the industrial and agricultural sector, giving the rising activity in those sectors as well, working with community bylaws. There's a large number of really high quality programs and services offered in this area, whether it's through the commission or the town or MD specifically, but every program has its issues. So enhancing some of those, working on the difficulties and expanding some of them, implementing some new ones. They would work as an ambassador essentially. So looking at specialized outreach with a focus on First Nation communities and, as I mentioned, the industrial, commercial, institutional sector, so the ICI sector. They would be available to the different entities to provide assistance for either there's the recycling depots, there's the landfills, transfer station operations. So they could kind of help across the board with those. Doing the one-on-one site visits, performing audits as necessary. That's going to be a requirement for the upcoming EPR program. There's a whole range of activities coming up in that program that will not be covered through the program. And so that's why we really think that this could assist each entity for that as well. They could assist with basic data entry, compiling different reports for benchmarking data to see how our programs are succeeding, especially with the EPR coming up. Dealing with internal and external customer complaints, requests, inquiries, and just like basic engagement with our surrounding municipal communities. There's a lot that as a region we face in terms of overall challenges, but I don't think we do enough in terms of working collaboratively to address those as a whole. So any general work as well for the involved entities as required. So we would be looking at a specialized position, somebody that's, good with communication, good with that one-on-one hands on the ground, dealing with businesses and those sectors that I mentioned, customer service, etc. So financially, it would depend on the route we go. We could do either a 6-month pilot or a 1-year pilot, but recommendation would be a year just because of the training involved. It takes a few months to get somebody trained. So if you're going to do it in that way, 1 year would be more beneficial. So I think the number in front of you is based on a 6-month pilot period, but if it was split between 4 entities, this position would require approximately $18,000 for each entity to fund this position for the 1-year period. So I have had preliminary discussions with the Athabasca Regional Waste Commission. There is some basic support there. More discussions are required. I have to get in front of their commission as well. But I have talked to the MD specifically and the commission, as I mentioned, and currently working on setting up a meeting with Sawridge First Nations. So I think I'll leave it at that. If there is any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councillor Adams.
That's the first thing that jumped out at me is why 4 entities? If we're only counting Athabasca as 1 entity for its commission, why are we counting Slave Lake as 3? For our side with the commission, the MD and the town, when the Athabasca one, I think, makes up 12 communities.
Yeah, so I guess it just comes down to how their commission is structured. So for the MD, there is separate budgets for the transfer station specifically. The commission itself has budget for the landfill. And then the town would have potentially different projects or initiatives to work on your own, especially you are registered as a separate entity for the EPR program itself. So you would have your own separate budget for dealing with those programs too. So Athabasca that's just how they're structured as one. They don't have all of their waste and recycling comes through their commission. So whereas we have few different budgets because of the way the sites are structured.
But they all feed to the one, correct?
The transfer
To the
station,
commission?
the waste comes to us.
Yeah.
The recycling is, we're working on different contracts with that, but maybe Price or Frankie or now Andrew. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that properly, but you might have some more information you can share.
So I actually had a question. I was going to consult my colleagues, but specifically Councillor Ferguson, because you have the most knowledge with the Waste Commission. Is this something that you're fond of and want to pursue?
Well, we had it brought up at our meeting for the Waste Commission, and we wanted to see what the buy-in was in from the other communities that it would be impacted by it first. So that's kind of where we went with it. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I mean, my kind of thought was to refer this to budget time and kind of discuss it a little more during our budget deliberations, because it obviously will have an impact to our budget.
That works a lot better for me.
Yeah, I think the position was brought up because there's a lot of different things. The way the commission is looking at operating is involving like bailing our own recyclables and changing some of the way the landfill is operating, so that I know that in previous years before we were on council, some of us were on council, but it was all, you need a new landfill within the next 3 years. And through some innovative practices, this has been extended thanks to the management with a longer timeline. So I believe this ties into it, and then would look at our recycle center and maybe some of the contracts surrounding that and some operational efficiencies. So did I summarize that?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I wasn't sure how far I should dive into the regional recycling hub we're exploring, but that is going to be a major impact to our operations. We'll receive a lot more revenue, but we also require more resources. And the town recycling depot is something I'd love to discuss in further details, because I think even with the EPR program, that site will be affected. And I think this position could definitely assist more hands on the ground with how that should be dealt with going forward.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the funding structure. Because we're going to have our waste commission, which we supply 50% funding to, paying 25% of its cost. Town of Slave Lake is going to pay 25% of the cost. The MD pays 25% of the cost. And then the Athabasca Regional Waste Management, however they're structured, which supplies 12 communities, pays 25% of the cost. So I guess I'm trying to understand why we're hitting 75% for what I would consider our immediate area.
Is there,
Of it.
I don't remember offhand, is there a time split, like the majority of the time is spent?
Yes.
Here.
I would assume.
Yes,
it'd be
that is
75,
correct.
25 then.
Yeah.
paying it, but-
So that one position would have to share that their quarter of, is a cost sharing model, so they would share a quarter of their resources amongst. They have a number of summer villages, but the focus of their attention would be right near the town of Athabasca where they have their MRF. They have, that's where their material is coming to for just the recyclables, but
Yeah, they have the town of Athabasca, the MD has pieces in there
Yeah.
as well.
so
The
they would have to share.
Athabasca County as well, the village of Boyle is in there. And then, like you say, a bunch of summer villages from there, which make up the rest.
Yeah.
But
And we would anticipate that this position would actually be centered like in Slave Lake and that it is understood by Athabasca. They would pay for a quarter of the salary and get a quarter of the resources. So it would be up to them how they split that amongst their area.
I think
Okay.
I think when it was presented to us, just for context, was that if we just do it with the MD, the town and our waste commission, we kind of miss that regional perspective. Now, because Athabasca is geographically further away, it becomes complicated to do like an equidistant share between everything.
Yeah.
But this way we can still have some regional focus, and I think the perspective, at least it was presented to us, was to reduce some of the costs to the town and the MD by having another partner kick in part of the cost. And then that way, if Sawridge is approached as well,
Yeah.
that would further go through that. That's just where that, from my understanding,
Yeah.
that all came from, as to why it was included that way. Because they're close enough. And so there could be some cost sharing, but it wouldn't be diverting, 50%
So
of the resources. there.
is the proposed amount of the $72,800, is that strictly the salary, or is that including like a budgetary line with benefits and everything in there?
That would be strictly his salary. Yeah.
More than that?
For this one position, I guess it would depend on the hours that come behind that as well. That's something,
Yeah, it says at an average rate of $35 an hour. Now, I don't know if that would be the salary or if that's your salary plus like.
and we're just using that as an estimated hourly rate based on what other positions similar to this are using.
Yeah, just it
So
would
we
probably
could cap
bring it
that
up,
or,
it'd probably bring it up to almost $90,000, and by the time you threw everything in, right? Between WCB, your benefit packages.
yeah, if you were to offer it as a contract position, I mean, you could eliminate the benefits. So if that's a route I
that's
mean,
what
we're
you're
open
wanting
to discussion. It was just more a starting point for that discussion.
Yeah, so from my understanding is the presentation is just to get this out there, get this in front of us. And
Yeah.
then when further details come out, if we have a better idea.
Yeah.
Partners that are somewhat interested, we obviously want to hear more about it. And then we can bring it back to budget for discussion.
Correct.
Anything else from council? Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that. Moving on to our second delegation of the evening, we have Slave Lake On Watch Association. If you can say your names and addresses into the mic, and then the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Mercedes Berger, PO Box 675, Slave Lake, Alberta.
And I'm Lynn Bowes, P O Box 1522, Slave Lake.
So Lynn and I are here tonight to introduce to you the Re-engaged Citizens on Patrol program through the Slave Lake On Watch Association.
So just our newly elected board, just the last couple months to get started. We have our president, Terry Triscoll, who is here tonight. Our vice president, Mercedes. Treasurer is Cynthia Horvath, myself as secretary, and Cindy Irvine is our director.
So why does our community or any community need a Citizens on Patrol program? So Citizens on Patrol programs work with the RCMP to help build safer communities. We'll be acting as additional eyes and ears for our RCMP, and we observe, document, and report when necessary. And we facilitate this as we know that what our community looks like normally and what seems out of place.
And Citizens on Patrol isn't unique to Slave Lake. There was a chapter previously, of course, with everything else, COVID it went from there. So with the current state, we thought that this would be a good time to bring it back in. Alberta Citizens on Patrol Association, ACOPA, governs all Citizens on Patrol chapters in Alberta, of which there's 48 active members. If you go on the site, you can see all of them. And it's proven that they help to build safer communities. It is citizens getting involved with the RCMP, watching, volunteering. We're an extra set of eyes. You know, we've all been talking about everything that's going on. It's an extra set of eyes out there. It's an extra set of ears. And as Mercedes said, because we are local citizens, you know, we know our neighborhoods, you get to know your friends' neighborhoods. We would have an idea about what is. If you have a new RCMP officer come in, might not know all the ins and outs for the community, whereas we've already been here for, 2, 3, 20, all of our lives, would know what's going on.
So our governing association, which is ACOPA, the Alberta Citizens on Patrol Association, has its own mission statement. The long and short of it is that they offer resources and services to their Citizens on Patrol programs. So this includes things like liability and disability insurance, and also training programs that our volunteers must go through in order to be able to patrol our community.
The goals of all COP groups. So number one, deterrence. By observing, documenting, reporting, we provide a presence in the community. We are out there. We're also educators. We're educating our volunteers about crime prevention, community safety, and awareness, making everybody aware. I mean, I know myself in the last year, I am more aware now of anything going on. We all are. Everybody's, we're on Facebook or you're driving down the street and you go, oh, okay. Citizens on Patrol also helps to kind of center that awareness with our training. Safety is extremely important. Our members are trained in safe practices. They don't go out on patrol until we've had our ACOPA training. And ACOPA is also about having fun. So if you're out on patrol, there's always 2 of you. If there's 2 sets out, they encourage, take a coffee break, go sit at Tim's, chat to each other, get to know each other. It's also another way of people getting to know each other different, maybe in the community.
So ACOPA has 5 basic rules for our Citizens on Patrol volunteers. Lynn highlighted one in the previous slide, that safety is of utmost importance. So the 5 rules are pretty much based off of that. One is never go on patrol alone. We always have 2 volunteers per vehicle. That is a non-negotiable. We are never to get out of our vehicle unless we are asked by an RCMP to help in any kind of emergency situation, which then we would aid them if need be. We also stay alert to our surroundings, trust our instincts, and if we feel uncomfortable in any kind of situation, we are able to leave. We are not to engage with anything beyond our training.
So before you can even become a COP volunteer, you need to have a criminal record check. And our RCMP detachment was nice enough that they copped the fee for all of our checks. So once you have your criminal record check, there's an application, and every 2 years, ACOPA requires us to renew those criminal checks. So it's not like you go get a criminal check now, go on the lam. No. And Citizens on Patrol, we kind of also monitor. We're watching everybody. If you've got a member who's kind of going out of control, we would step in and talk to them. So if you've got somebody who's maybe being a little bit loud or something, we do have like I said, a presence in the community. We have to have a certain
Decorum.
Yes.
right out. Additionally, we have a liaison officer. So there's a specific officer at our detachment that if there's anything the RCMP wants to get out to us, he's the one who's going to come. If we've got anything going back, that way we're not talking to this person or that person. We have a specific officer. Currently, we have 30 members updated from the slide. Last Tuesday, we had a training session, so we have 20 active people. And even though it said we started our patrols, we are getting our app figured out and we have to talk with our officer. So we will be starting patrols ASAP.
So with the ACOPA training, pardon me, it is highlighted that we are to observe, document, and report when necessary. Our volunteers also learn about who our liaison officer is and how to properly do our check-ins when they are going out on patrols. And then we also have, for documentation purposes, an ACOPA iPatrol app that is records with GPS, so it records the path that the volunteers take. In this, you can also take pictures, voice notes, videos, and it pops those in exactly where the person took them. And it also is any kind of log for any report. So if we do see anything happening, you click on a specific, say it's like a break and enter, you click on the break and enter and you start logging and a GPS records that as well. At the end of the shift or the patrol, these things get emailed to us as well to our RCMP liaison officer, just for documentation purposes. And if all else fails with the app, we do have paper logs as well, because we know technology likes to work and then not work when you need it sometimes as well. And then with the training, we also learn what is an emergency situation and what warrants like a 911 call, what warrants like a dispatch call, or what warrants just a documentation call or documentation report to the RCMP detachment and to our liaison officer.
So when you become a member of Citizens on Patrol, you get access to the ACOPA site, which there's all kinds of videos and materials. I've just kind of listed a few here. They've got different things on preventing auto theft, lock it or lose it, stopping fraud, personal safety, detecting impaired drivers. And, you know, for the Citizens on Patrol members, it's just an added resource personally in order to help yourself stay safe. And of course, we're going to share that with our friends and family, and it'll be including everyone else's too.
So as we all know, Slave Lake is in a difficult position, as are a lot of other Alberta communities. Everyone is talking about crime prevention right now and crime reduction strategies. We believe that Citizens on Patrol through our association is part a solution, not the solution. And we even see that, you know, we're talking about crime prevention in our own lives, or it is a hot topic. We know that. So we are here to help. We are here to work with members of our community and communities that do have Citizens on Patrol programs do see a reduction in crime. Although stats are typically hard to find, we have been able to find some videos and some articles saying that they have been helping with locating criminals or figuring out. There was one in Calgary where it was like the Citizens on Patrol helped figure out a shooting case. So it has been known to help.
As we said before, we all have criminal checks. And so with that, we are also able to volunteer in our community with other community groups. An example of this, our webmaster is in the Strathcona section. And every year when Strathcona has any kind of event and they have the Lost Children tent or booth, the Citizens on Patrol members always man it, because Strathcona County knows that they've already got their criminal checks. They don't have to do anything extra. We have been partnering with the Legion in order to help out that events. And we're also going to be volunteering at the Crash for Cash Derby. We're going to be helping do some security in the parking lot and that. And basically, we came here tonight just to let you know who we are, what it's about, give you maybe some more details, more information. That's what we are all about. We've received a lot of amount of support from the community, businesses. I mean, a couple of emails, and there's been a lot of people coming in. We're hoping to build on that. And basically, thank you for your time tonight. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them at us.
Floor to council. Councilor Garlick.
I already know the answer, but just so everyone at home knows, what is the cost to run your program?
So basically, physical costs would be our insurance. There is every patrol will have a gear bag, which includes a flashlight. We have safety vests, So things like flashlights, we've had some donated, we've are gonna buy some. Safety vests, actually, we have had over 20 safety vests donated to us. I think we figured out probably for the first year, about $3,000
Yeah,
is budget, which is supplies. Actually, the previous Citizens on Patrol had, they had gas cards that are still active.
Mhm.
So, but what we're going to be doing is making sure we log and know what kind of fuel we're using. It's not like we're gonna let everybody fill up. I mean, if you're out there and you're big 3/4 ton, you're gonna use a lot less than a little hybrid. It's gonna be a minimum amount, but right now, the amount of support we've gotten, I'd say we're good for the next couple of years.
Wow, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I was, when the ladies let me know where our donations were at, was like, holy man. And some of, it's been anywhere from a couple of $100 to some companies have given more, or like I said, some company, they just gave us 20 safety vests and we're like, great.
That's awesome. Thank you.
thank you.
Counselor, you, I
Welcome.
can't, you're leaning forward. Counselor Malone.
Okay, so you've said you've done, you have like 30 members right now
Yes.
as of today. What does the average member look like? Or are we looking at more seniors who are doing this? Are it young people, a mix of everything?
You know what?
Everything.
Let's look around the room.
Yeah.
We have some older retired people.
Mhm.
We've got some younger people. We've got couples, single people,
Business
people
owners.
with kids, business owners. Quite honestly, it is everybody.
Mhm.
And it was just anybody who wants. I mean, basically you need to be 18. One of the things they talked about in the training is, like we talked about, it's always a minimum of 2 people. Just as an extra to that, no kids, no animals. It is just 2 adults, you don't want the dogs or anything in the back, but yeah, no, it is everyone.
So ideally, is it just one vehicle at a time, at a time, or do you think you'd have 2 vehicles? Like, what do you think it would take to look after Slave Lake properly?
So ultimately, we would like all of town covered at all times, but that's difficult to achieve. Yeah, like we're hoping for at least 1 vehicle a night. And the dream would be one's north and industrial area, one south side, and we are even able to expand into Widewater and into the Mitsu area if we have enough volunteers and enough support from those communities as well.
Yeah, it literally does come down to how many volunteers, how many hours. I
Yeah,
mean,
and what people are able to provide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Adams.
You touched on one of my questions already, but. Okay, so much along the same lines as how many people you have out there in a night, how long do you do your shifts? How does that play out?
Again, it's going to be what people are able to provide. So it could be 3 hours, could be 5 hours. If somebody's just coming off a shift and can do an hour with another volunteer. The thing is like the more eyes and ears at any time is a benefit to our community. So whatever people can provide for us, or whatever we're able to coordinate, we are going to allow.
Was the plan this then to do Citizens on Patrol at 4 a.m. kind of thing, and you
Well,
have volunteers
the
for
thing
that,
is-
or how does that work?
well, we've kind of talked about this and as we're going, but I mean, Slave Lake, we've got the Monday to Friday people, we've got shift work, days, nights, afternoons, everything. And one of the things we'd like to do is be able to accommodate anyone. In one of the first meetings, we had a fellow going, I'm not quite sure sometimes when I can go, if I have a call out or something, but I might come home at 1 a.m. and if we're all connected, it can be okay. And his wife, and they want to go out. Okay. And we'd like to be able to say, if you want to volunteer an hour a month, if you want to volunteer 150 hours a month. The whole idea is if we can accommodate you being out there for 1 hour, we can get more people in. And that's the whole thing. Ultimately, I'd like to go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but
But we also are
Fair enough.
aware of like these times where a lot of activity, I guess you could say, is happening between 10 p.m. and 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And so we have talked extensively with our volunteers about that. And they are also aware of the high activity times. So there are a lot of volunteers that are willing to accommodate those hours.
And part of the, with having the liaison officer, and we all know that the RCMP have been working on, you know, the data and getting a lot of stuff, is if we're talking with our liaison officer and he's saying, okay, you know, we seem to be having a real uptick in the Northwest Tuesday nights. Okay, so then we can kind of help to throw the extra eyes and ears out there. And that's part of the collaboration with the RCMP, is that, you know, we're not gonna go out and just sit
Hang
at
out
the
by
end of the
Timmy's.
airport when there's nothing going on. We
Yeah.
want to be able to work with them in order to help them cover as much as we possibly can.
Counselor Chobo.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all the volunteers and individuals like yourselves who are taking up this role to provide some form of security and safety in our community. My question is around training. You did mention a bit about it. So can you elaborate on some of the training processes for COP volunteers and what specific skills or knowledge they acquire during the trainings that you think will help them be successful in that COP role?
So ACOPA, which is the governing body of Alberta, provides a trainer to come and do the training. And the long and short of the skills is just observe and document and report. We are not to get involved with any of these situations. So the training is very basic. It's just extra eyes and ears and communicating with the RCMP. So it's training on the app. It's recognizing the log reports, the paper ones, if the circumstances arise. It's knowing what to look out for and just, yeah, how to write that out.
Well, and it's the stressing of observe, report, document. You know, we've all seen, everybody's talking, there's a lot of different ways people are going about things in the community. And ACOPA, like I said, we are not vigilante. We are not going to get out of our vehicle. I mean, if we see somebody stealing something from business downtown, we are not going to get out of our vehicles, throw on a vest, grab a big ass flashlight and head down the street and beat them down. No, we report if we need to follow somebody. But the whole point is that we do not put ourselves in danger. Something that came up at one of the early meetings, you know, people saying, afraid of being targeted. They're going to get to know our vehicles, our license plate numbers. And Garth, who is the president of ACOPA, he's out of the Westlock. His home address is actually listed. And he's been part of Citizens on Patrol for well over 20 years and has never had an issue with the fact of anybody following any kind of damage to anything. You know, it is about safety. And we did tell people that if you don't feel safe doing this, then you know what, maybe there's other ways you could still be part of Citizens on Patrol, but can you do volunteering or that kind of stuff as opposed to going out on patrol? I mean, if you've got a bright yellow truck with, you know, we've all talked about this, you know, maybe not taking the company vehicle on patrol. If you had, like I said, a bright yellow truck with some kind of flag on it, okay, maybe better off. But like I said, it is about safety and it is about just observing. Like I said, we're not out there to do any kind of physical stuff.
Okay, last question. You've talked a lot about observe and report, and in the last couple of months, we've heard a lot from our RCMP staff sergeant and also from members of the community about the RCMP not responding on time. How do you think this would impact the effectiveness of your group, and what are some of the things that you're going to put in place to kind of help that? Because part of the success is tied to the RCMP again, and just really trying to balance that.
So, yeah. We have our liaison officer. We are going to be working closely with the detachment as far as the RCMP. Like if we call in something serious and it needs to be handled with the RCMP. If they're not able to handle that, then we have the authority to like talk to our RCMP liaison officers, see what's going on. And then we can also go above and beyond and ask for additional support from outer RCMP as well, saying like, we're not getting the support we need, or we're noticing this. So we do kind of have a fail-safe plan also.
And I also believe that the iPatrol app doesn't, it's when it sends in our patrol, it's not sending it to the Slave Lake detachment. It is Edmonton, sends into RCM, like it's not just keeping it here. I mean, and I'm not gonna sit and say anything, but we're trying to ensure that the stats. I mean, I know the RCMP have talked about the more data, the more reporting. They can do the GPS, the locating. To me, this is an additional helper in that. If you've got more people, more reports going in, and I mean, everybody sits there, everybody's on Facebook. Oh, I reported it. Did they not? Are they just saying? We
Are they just
know,
posting on Facebook
we
and
know
saying
that at this
reported it?
patrol, if we see this, if we see that, that report is going in. And I guess, I mean, as time goes on, you know, working with our liaison officer, it will be to see. I do know that COP is very successful in a lot of communities. We did have an RCMP officer come to one of the
Both of
first
ours.
actually, yeah, both times. And the one RCMP officer has been involved with COP programs in other communities and it was very glowing of the recommendation. Like he said, it really did work. So that's kind of what we're hoping to go for.
Councilor Hughes?
Yeah, he kind of got the tail end of my question as well. It was just more clarity around the iPatrol app. So at the end of every shift, whatever you've logged on the app is going to the Acopa place though.
No, it goes to the RCMP.
It goes to our local one, like, or just the RCMP in general.
I'm honestly not 100% sure.
Okay,
We
I was
will
just
look into
wondering
that.
how much of the data that you guys compile will actually be seen locally, I guess was kind of what I was trying to
Trying to grasp that,
understand.
doesn't actually document it, we get to save it and use it.
So
Yes,
it is
kind of, yeah.
documented and saved. So I
Okay.
did a test run of it last week after our training.
Yeah.
And at the end of the patroller shift, you click finish and it pulls up anything that you have entered into that app and you have to email it off. So
Okay.
it gets emailed to us and then we will email it to our liaison officer.
Okay.
And it
yeah.
has everything documented from kilometers driven, time start, time finished, and then any incidents reported. So on the app, you would click if you saw something,
Right.
and then you start documenting. You could take photos and videos, and everything, even with that, is
Okay.
sent
So-
off as well.
For an example, then, if you guys are sitting in a truck and you're literally witnessing a break and enter, you're not calling the local or calling 911,
No,
you're
we
just
are.
doing the app, or
Yes,
you're
no,
doing
no.
a bit of both. It
We're
depends
doing
on the
both, yes.
It
situation.
depends on, that's where part of the training is learning. that,
Okay.
Okay, this guy's driving by.
Yeah,
he's
seems
on
a little
the-
suspicious.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's on the painted bike with the mask on and everything, okay.
Got
as
it.
opposed
Okay.
to-
So it's based on the situation you guys are obviously
But
observing.
we're always documenting regardless of the situation.
Okay.
Does
Yeah, I
that-
just wanted
Yeah,
the clarity around how that part worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all good.
The fact is that if, so, yep, you're sitting in your truck and you see somebody smashing a window
Yeah, you're getting. on
and
the
you've
phone.
got your phone up. Because there's two of you,
Mhm.
okay, so Mercedes is gonna call 911. I'm gonna sit there and video it.
Okay.
Because this
Safely.
gets uploaded at the end of the patrol, our CMP can also use these pictures, videos, whatever, as evidence in their case. We actually, they said he had to make sure that your phone time and date are synced up, or that can
Right.
be used to something thrown out. But if you've got the time, the date, the RCMP can take that, and now they have an additional tool, because say if they don't get there until the guy starts running off.
Yeah.
But I've got my video.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is what he
Whole
looks
thing
like,
is- yeah,
right? Like
here's
this
what
is
that-
where he went. This
That's
is-
great.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you guys have most of the appropriate resources, which is honestly wonderful to hear. I love that there is the app, and I especially love that you have direct communication with that liaison officer. I think that's obviously a really crucial piece there, ingredient to this whole process. So I'm happy to hear that. And yeah, just thank you to you guys and your volunteers and the groups and all the businesses and the community that have supported you guys as well. That's really nice to hear, and I'm happy to see that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys, this is more of a joke, but I was gonna say, you guys have an extra number to get RCMP help. Can you give it to Frankie? Because the one she has isn't working.
We can talk after, Frank.
But aside from costs, which you guys have covered, anything holding you back? You just want more volunteers, spread the word on more
Yeah,
volunteers?
It's more volunteers. I believe that we have a meeting with our liaison officer
Next week.
next week. And that's just to kind of formalize it. You know, how it's going to work with him, because they all do things a little bit differently at each different COP. I mean, years ago, they would use radios where you would actually have radio contact with the RCMP. Of course, now theirs are kind of digital and encrypted, so we can't do that. So you have to kind of work with your liaison, how this is going to work. And like I said, I know I am actually, you know, you can't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, how many of us wake up and go, hey, are you all righty? Let's roll.
Counselor Moellem and I did counselors on patrol for some
Yeah.
few late nights. And I'll say, we don't have any secret number because the number we call, we don't get the results we wanted, but that aside, I think just driving around is a bit of a deterrent,
It's
and
absolutely.
they're like, why are you following us? Like, why are you driving through the industrial area on your bike at
Yeah.
2 a.m? So
All of a sudden, the
Well,
Northwest is a lot busier
Yeah,
at three
well,
AM.
And part of the reporting in that at the beginning of your patrol, you report in and go, hi, this is Lynn and Mercedes, and we are in a Blue Escape with this license number. So that when we're driving around the industrial or whatever, and somebody phones in that somebody has drove by their house 4 times, and here's their license plate number, the RCMP is go, okay, yeah, no. And I mean, you know, if we can get this rolling and get it going, I mean, y'all remember the rural crime watch signs?
Mhm.
We're looking at doing citizens on patrol signs. Again, it's about getting out there, people noticing. If you know I'm gonna be sitting watching you, are you liable to do something? Or, you know, that kind of, and that's what it is all about.
I
is
think
getting us all
that'll be a big
together.
deterrent. I think
Mhm.
just having more vehicles driving around at night that
That's, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what we're hoping.
Counselor Adams.
When's your next training, a COPA training session?
We don't have anything official planned. It'll either be the last week of June or the beginning of July. So within the next 3-4 weeks for the rest of the volunteers that were able to make the first one.
Counselor Moellem.
I like that you touched on that little social piece in there too, because I think even when me and Sean were going around, like it was pretty exciting, and I could see for someone who's even new to town. Well, no, it was.
Oh,
Yeah.
I walked on last week
Okay.
with my friend.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, but I could see someone who's new to town as well, who, you know, wants to take a little bit of pride in their community, that this would be one avenue that they might take. Yeah, in trying something like this. But what I wanted to also ask is, if someone wanted to get involved, who would they contact?
So the best way to contact us and the most official way to contact us is through our email, which is slavelakeonwatch@gmail.com.
We also have a Facebook page.
We do, which is the Slave Lake on Watch Association. Frankie I know that she has that, so she could pass that on to you guys as well. Email is the best correspondence because there we can send how to become a volunteer, what is required to be a volunteer, and we can send the appropriate documentation as you need, like the ACOPA application from that association, which is the Citizens on Patrol application, and then a letter stating that you will be a volunteer for us to bring into the RCMP detachment to then get your criminal record check done free of charge. And then that comes back to us, and then Lynn processes that through ACOPA. So it's kind of a process, but if you email us, then we can send you all of that information in a lovely little formatted email and get you on as a volunteer.
And I do know that Terry and Mercedes are really quick on the email.
Yeah.
Do you get a badge?
Actually, we were discussing that. Once you've been a Citizen on Patrol member for 6 months, we get IDs. We have ACOPA, they will have our picture on it and everything. So
Yep.
yes, we can put sheriff on yours if you'd like.
Please don't, yeah.
I think it's great work that you guys are doing. I'm really proud to see that this organization, after obviously, I don't even want to say the COVID anymore, but it screwed up all the things. So I'm really happy to see that it's been revived. I would suggest that if you do have any like larger type announcements that you want the town to release on behalf of Citizens on Patrol, that you just send them to the communications department, and so that we can get those out.
Thank you.
Especially when you have things like training or if you're doing a membership call. So some of the bigger ones, I think that would be really helpful for that as well. I was going to mention that do you have, my one question after all those questions, and I promise I'll keep that short, is do you have them contact directly to the detachment on night shift, or is it just through the liaison officer?
So that's what we're going to nail down as a
Okay.
detail next week, exactly what our officer is going to look for while we're on patrols.
Yeah,
So we
that's
don't
fine.
quite have an answer because we've been told
It's fantastic.
2-3 different things, but it hasn't been from our actual liaison officer. So we are going to discuss that with him directly and then.
What the direct line of community, that we made jokes about direct line to the detachment. But my question is if you are on shift and you know, if we do have access to, for instance, a direct line to whoever's on shift that evening. As opposed to being.
Yeah,
vetted
and that was,
through the
yeah,
what we're
benefit,
gonna-
because
yeah.
Same question I have, so I will
Yeah.
look forward to that answer in the future.
yes.
And I think that should wrap that up for questions from us.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Counselor Choba's hand is up first.
I'll make a motion to accept this information.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. So what we have next is our business arising from delegations from last week. So Jeff, if you want to maybe provide a summary of where we're at.
Yes, good evening. So you have the original report that was presented. Since that council meeting last week, we've received a few other pieces of additional information that have been included in your package this evening for consideration. One of which was some supplementary information from Apex in regards to their proposal. You also have included in your package a submission from Harbor Security Company, which is a drone operating company, for their proposal and solution with a couple of pricing options. And I've also supplied some additional information from the RCMP in regards to enhanced policing that was discussed and requested last meeting. So before you've got the original report and information plus the 3 attachments. And I have a couple other pieces of information as it relates to the RCMP that might not necessarily be specified in that report, but I'm available for your questions should you have.
Do you want to provide some of the RCMP summary?
Yeah, so you had asked some specific questions regarding cost. So my estimates were actually pretty close. First of all, enhanced policing is an option with them. It just would require, I believe it's, if you look at the RCMP document, it was page. Looks like page 4, or no, sorry, page 4, option 2 is short-term enhanced. So that's what I was discussing. And then in terms of process to sign it, was on page 8, option 2. So a letter of agreement with, essentially with K-Division, which is fairly minor in nature. You're looking at roughly, you would set a budget depending on however much you wanted to spend on that budget, whether it's monthly, annually, whatever the case may be. Based on that budget, you would set some expectations. So if your expectation was you wanted them to patrol 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, from whatever time to whatever time, they would essentially put that call letter out for overtime, voluntary overtime. So members within the existing detachment that might be on days off, or day bring detachments often will, if they have members that are on off shift, might utilize or take up some of those shifts. So you could set the parameters, you know, you want just uniform patrols of specific areas or whatever the parameters may be. You're looking at roughly, for one member, you would only have to have one member necessarily on shift. I guess it depends on what your request would be. But if you had one member on shift for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're looking at roughly $6,100 a week for that sort of extra coverage over and on top of what you have.
Question, sorry. You might not know the answer, but does that guarantee us an extra member, or is it just like right now where they might want to work overtime and they might not want to?
You won't get charged. You won't get charged if you don't fill the shift.
I know, but we don't.
Right?
get
No, it
charged
does
now.
not
They can fill
guarantee.
their shift.
No, it
Yeah,
does not guarantee.
No
The
guarantee.
detachment was optimistic that they would have people that would take up those shifts, right? But and then they would, you know, initially they would have their from experience, they would have a call letter out or call request out internally, see if any local members are interested first. If that didn't fill all of the shifts that were identified, then they might call out to neighboring detachments. They might call out to Red Earth, they might call out to High Prairie, they might call out to Westlock. If those shifts didn't get filled, then they would do a call out provincially. So they were fairly, with the amount of members that they have within the province, they were fairly confident that they could fill these shifts, but there is no guarantee. Absolutely right.
Councillor Ferguson.
So a couple questions here, Jeff. So I was just looking through the eligibility and it says towns, villages and summer villages with a population of 5,000 people or less are eligible for it. So are we eligible?
Yeah, you're over, you got a municipal contract. So we're over 5,000. What the idea here is that they're talking about in terms of, I mean, there's two different types of enhanced policing contracts here. There's one where they're maybe adding another position on top of their establishment. So if you were a small detachment that had 4 members, or you had a small little community, small little detachment, but you wanted to bring in an extra member for a specific reason, that would be difficult for them to arrange under that sort of piece. But if you have a municipal contract like we do, you can set a budget for this. You can have enhanced policing for whatever the purpose is. So there's no issue with regarding.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. And then I guess the other comment I had is it says it requires 3 months notice. So it's something to be able to scale up quickly, or what would you figure?
I think that's probably optimist. I think it probably could be scaled up much quicker than that. Yeah. It's just a matter of a letter of agreement and then identifying what your parameters are and then attempting to schedule. So.
Okay.
I mean, on a operational emergency basis, this happens all the time in less than, on 2 hours notice, right? That they might do a call letter for additional resources for an additional purpose. So that's, the infrastructure is there to facilitate that. It's just a matter of setting a budget, setting some accounting of it. And scheduling it essentially, or trying to fill shifts if you were to go that way.
And I don't know where the rest of council stands, but I'd prefer to try something other than the RCMP. I would like to get some data points from some other entities and see what what kind of results we get. So it's kind of my thoughts at the moment.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, I'll chime in a bit. So I was away last week for managers meeting, so I watched and read everyone's reports, and I was the one who made the motion to look for security of some sort. What I was hoping for was someone to kind of push criminals along and make their life uncomfortable, which I think current law enforcement isn't doing, and we're not getting that. And all of these seem to be, most of them seem to be more of the observe and reporting at a professional level, which these fine folks are going to do at a amateur level, but it looks like a lot of money for a bunch of observe and reporting. And so my direction was, I don't know what you would call it, just more moving criminals along and making sure they're dealt with. So just wanted to chime in because I was missed last week.
Councillor Adams.
I understand that they're not gonna be like the professional observe report one you're talking about, I think isn't necessarily to the level of an RCMP and how they can step into a situation. But at the same time, I think it's a considerably different what they're doing compared to what Citizens on Patrol is doing. They can intervene and be in saying, hey, move along out of this area. It's not right. They're trained to do that. And my understanding is in their sales pitch, at least the Apex one, I believe it was saying that is what they do along with all the recording they did in their statistic sheets. So no, they're not going to exactly arrest, remove, storm down a door, but I think they are going to call in police when necessary, move people along that are starting to set up camps, anything like that that's happening when they're doing their watches. I don't want to, I'm not necessarily saying I'm in favor of that, but I'm also don't want to misrepresent what they're bringing to the table kind of thing.
Councillor Adams, would like to weigh in?
Sure, I'll keep going. I'm kind of opposed to what Councillor Ferguson was saying. I'm almost in line of trying enhanced RCMP. And the reason for that, for the short term, is it's quick I feel we can ramp it up pretty quick, even though they're saying the 3-month period there. I think we could see a result sooner than that, I'd hope. But I'd like to try that out because one, it's easy. We know what that dollar figure is. We can instigate it immediately and we can roll out immediately with a controlled expense. If it's not working, we can adapt quickly and shut it down and go a different route. We don't have to give notice of termination. We don't have to, like, to the extent that the others are. At least that's my thought on it.
Counselor.
I'm the exact opposite. I feel like throwing money at something that we know exists and for me isn't working. I don't think we should reward them with filling out their extra 2-hour shifts that they can't figure out how to do on their own with their own scheduling. That was done my whole life growing up here with the same size community. I don't want to give the RCMP more money. I want to give them less money. That's all.
Okay.
Hmm.
Counselor Moallem.
I think I would like definitely to try something new. I don't think what's out there right now is working for us. I think I would like to try something new, maybe something on a short-term basis where we can kind of get some data results and decide on a bigger scale what to do from there, I think.
Counselor Adams.
Okay. If we're looking at this, we got 13 officers that are looking after, and then you take off their time for the other stuff they got to do. It's life. We have 13 officers in the community. The community has changed in its needs compared to what it was. So comparing to the past is very difficult to do. Are we better off taking that money that we're going to throw into a new style to fund that to increase our crime watch? Are we better off hiring 2 more police officers to bring it up to 15, where that can definitely increase their effectiveness on the ground? I mean, if you're overworked at 13, when you throw more people, it makes your life easier. Maybe they can accomplish a lot more effectively.
Counselor
Just a thought.
We can't hire 2 more police officers. We have to build a $13 million building for them to be housed in.
Take an exception. Figure it out.
Well, they won't make the exception. They don't like to work with people.
I'll weigh in on the RCMP piece. I appreciate the coverage that the RCMP has provided. Over the last 3 months in begging for additional resources, it took 2 months to get additional resources from the larger Eastern District. And so when begging, it took 8 weeks to mobilize resources, which is infinitely frustrating when we're trying to have a quicker response. I would like to try something different. I'm not on the path of throwing additional funding. I think we already throw $2.5 million towards municipal policing. And I would like to supplement that with something different on a trial basis. I don't believe what we have currently is working.
If the citizens of patrol could get up and running in a week or 2, would that be something to hold out for and wait to see if, hey, some extra eyes are on there, maybe a bunch more people jump on board and it's still community paid for, but it's with donations at this point. And it'd be a way cheaper option if we had to fund it as well before we jump into some heavy observe and report security.
Counselor Adams.
That's exactly the opposite of what you just said you wanted. You said you wanted somebody that's going to push these people along, going to get them out of an area. This is not the answer for that. This is getting us statistics. This is getting us
Your
reporting.
favorite thing is statistics.
This is, and I'm all for it. Trust me, I love it. It's our last report for 2 weeks. We've had 10 crimes in town, which I'm thinking it's more than that. But that's all that's being reported.
But that,
So us getting the additional statistics and stuff and then not putting any money at it is the exact opposite of what you're wanting to do here or what you want to accomplish.
well,
If you want to reduce the RCMP, then let's reduce the RCMP, take 2 officers out of the GIS section, take that money, then throw that into funding the supports that you're wanting to go after. But then again, that's going to reduce RCMP, which are the ones that are going to be on the ground making arrests.
Counselor Fox.
No, I'm good for a bit.
You're good for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Hands up down here, anyone? Counselor Hughes.
I mean, I guess just to weigh in on the RCMP situation, as that's what we're currently discussing. I would have to agree with what Councillor Mwellum and Mayor Ward said as well. I think I am way more in favor of trying something a little bit different and not interested in giving any more municipal funds to the RCMP at this point in time.
Counselor Ferguson, yes, no? Thinking, okay, we can have the moment to think there. Counselor Adams.
Okay, the reason I like the RCMP piece is, I understand it's gonna take time to ramp up. It's not the quick fix that you're after, but if we're willing to delay out for, see what happens with citizens on patrol, I would just as soon try and have an RCMP officer, whether through additional funding of overtime or committing to a permanent endeavor and seeing what that looks like. I know we've said before they require an additional building, but maybe there's something we can pull out of that building and house in a different provincial piece, like an administration side, that we can have the RCMP there, like, I don't know, but something that we can talk to them. I'd rather have somebody on the ground that is able to arrest, investigate, and do the full meal deal of what we're paying for here with a police officer than having necessarily a security force out there doing what we could do.
I will say that there are other communities like Calling Lake that have done with this and have hired additional security because of the lack of service, even though there were options such as the one presented with regards to overtime for them as well. So there's, I think, there's 3 or 4 other communities that are considering something as this. So while I don't necessarily believe it to be just a Slave Lake problem, it has ultimately been thrown into our hands. So that's, I don't think throwing additional funding there will be more effective. I would rather not throw any funding at that and then wait to see what happens. Councillor Ferguson.
Just had a question kind of for Councillor Adams, and it was, do you think the data that we're currently getting from the RCMP right now is correct?
I would like to think that our data we're getting is correct, since it's our policing force. I don't know how much of our data is actually being reported, even though it's saying it's being reported. I don't know. How do you not trust an entity that is supplying this information? If that's the case, then we should totally stop funding it all. If that's the case, and then if you don't trust your police force, I struggle with
We
it.
tried that a few years ago.
There's a difference between reported and reported. And I mean, I don't know where it ends up or whatnot, because a lot of people,
Well, then
find that they're reporting issues, yet we don't see the
They
record. of
say,
it.
yeah,
So
I get that. But then what I'd like us to do then is to put that onto the RCMP and I don't know, call for the province for an investigation, hit up
The number.
what about our MP for the federal side to ask what that is and look into it more and get support from that end. That's a kind of a separate issue from what we're doing right now, but maybe it bears digging into.
What you touched on, I believe, is the word trust, and that's what both of you said in both of your responses right now. And currently what we have, regardless of whether or not statistics are factual, is a public perception and a lack of trust in our local detachment. Warranted or not, that is the situation we're in. And I think that the public perception, and I'm not saying that that's not valid, is a lack of trust built up over years of likely a deficit in service. So, again, that furthers, I guess, the point that I'm making, that I'm not willing to spend municipal dollars at this point until there has been a turnaround in the perception and the level of service that is being provided. Includes communication, includes visibility, includes targeting repeat offenders, those key priorities that we identified in our meeting with the local detachment. That is what I believe, myself personally, I'm looking for movement in those 3 areas. Councillor Moore.
I agree with a lot of what you said. On one of my last late night drive-throughs, I saw something that was a little bit, I would say, fishy or sketchy. Me and the passenger, we called it in and we watched from a distance kind of to see kind of what happens, how long it takes. I think the time was really good. I don't know if I was 100% satisfied in saying that that was a deterrent or that an effort was made to kind of either prevent something from happening again. So to me, it seemed like a call was made. They did show up. Maybe not the same level that I would expect was put into that altercation, and it was completed. And
So that would go undocumented in these stats where there were multiple crimes taking place. If just look for this much that day.
I think so.
I know so. I was your passenger.
They weren't lying about the counselors on patrol.
Yeah.
Counselor Chova.
I think I'm with Steve on this one a bit, just because I feel like, but I think we should wait and give Citizens on Patrol a chance to show us some of the things they've talked about tonight. They did say they have a liaison or a partnership with the RCMP that I think can be helpful to kind of help us convince maybe Steve and someone like me to really turn a blind eye towards the RCMP and some of their supports, because if Citizens of Patrol is saying that they can work with the RCMP, then I think maybe it's worth giving it some time to look at and then maybe make a decision at a later date. Because I like the enthusiasm I get from Citizens of Patrol, and so I think maybe we can be looking at making a decision sooner, but after maybe Citizens of Patrol kind of give us a bit of their data for the first X amount of weeks or whatever that looks like. That's kind of where I'm at.
Counselor Adams.
Another piece to touch on that we kind of glossed over, but a lot, it seems, considerably less expensive model was the drone proposal and how that works by being 90 feet in the air and surveying and thermal imaging at 100 kilometers an hour. Covers a lot of ground in just the itty bitty town of Slave Lake. Is that something that you're interested in with tying that in, or is that something like that totally out of the picture here for what we're looking at? If we're just looking at observe and report, maybe that's the quickest and easiest way to do it. It just doesn't get us our men on the ground.
Counselor Ferguson.
For me, I kind of wanted a little bit of both. I was in favor of something with that, the drone option, and I was also in favor of something a little more boots on the ground that interacts with various groups in town as well. So I kind of wanted a little bit of both. I understand that comes at a sizable investment, but you know, we need to do something, and I don't think any of us came into this knowing it wasn't going to cost us something.
Counselor Moala.
I think for me, the one thing I think that we need and we're missing is just that little bit of uncomfortability. I guess if that's a word, it might not be a word, but from what I saw from the RCMP, I don't think that that kind of met what I thought my threshold or my level would have been with having someone sketchy at 11:30 with youth involved. I would think that maybe, maybe following them for a little while, asking them to open their bag. If they have their hand in their jacket, asking them to see what they're holding on to, those kind of things. I think I would like to take it like a step further that way.
Counselor Adams.
This is going to be horrible. And you're going to hate me for it, but they still have rights. We still got to follow. You can't just, I know that house has drugs in it, and I know that they deal out of that house. Doesn't mean that I get to storm through the door and take down whoever. That'd be a sight, but like that just, we still have rights and civil liberties within our society. So we can't just do it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. From what we saw, a group was walking together. Suddenly, a couple of the group members ran ahead when they noticed the RCMP coming. Now, the RCMP dealt with the people that were stayed behind, but the other two were left to run freely.
Okay, well, I guess let's start talking about proposals. So where we want to go with it. So I mean, I kind of mentioned that, I do want to try the drone idea. I do want to try some boots on the ground. And for me, we had Apex here last week. I think they were very professional in their presentation. I would like to try it for 1 month. Like I said, I understand these come at a sizable investment, but we had almost $500,000 surplus last year. Let's use some of that and as a trial and collect our data points and, we'll reevaluate after a month. That's kind of where I'm on the lines I'm along right now.
So to clarify, you're looking at the 1 month or the 6 month of the drones?
I would like to try 1 month for the drones.
So the 85,000,
Yes, and I would like to try 1 month with Apex as well.
and that's, let's call it mid-range 40.
Yeah.
Counselor Adams.
Can I ask Apex a question? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, I can, it's my meeting, I can do these things. But I will ask that if, so Apex for the cameras, Apex Security is here, so I can permit delegates to come up and speak. So if you wouldn't mind joining us, gentlemen, here.
Just a quick question.
It's just that if it's on the mic, then it's picked up by the YouTube viewers.
Well, one of the things that's been brought up here by Councillor Gremlich and Councillor Moellem is that making people feel uncomfortable in the situations that they're in so that we're moving. Is that something you do or is that against what you do? How does that work? If that question made any sense.
We're very hands-on security company, and Grand Prairie Air Patrol Department frequently makes arrests for break and enter indictable crimes on our client's property. On the PSU during the program, we made arrests for trespass. That's why that agent program we discussed is so important, so that you have that authority to make arrests for, say, trespass to move people along. Or once you make the arrest, you do have to turn them over to an RCMP member, but you don't need an RCMP member to make an arrest. So we train extensively to be able to know when to make those arrests and what for. Like I said, in the previous council meeting, we do try to get verbal compliance with moving people along and trying to, but if you have to make an arrest, if we see a crime, we're going to do something hands-on if it's safe to do so. Like if I see somebody pull a gun out or something, of course, we're going to try to disengage, report to RCMP, but for anything less minor, we would definitely be hands-on.
And I think we do that visual presence and along with that consistent presence. Is your question in regards to, are we continually enforcing or putting pressure on these people? Absolutely. That would be our priority in regards to making sure the visual presence is there and that their presence is notable to those individuals that are doing anything like that, that we would put a little bit more pressure on them.
And if I remember correctly, there's members of the public security unit would become essentially bylaw officers, sworn in as bylaw officers, so that you can uphold the bylaws of the town. And then from my understanding, it was a significant amount of the arrests were due to like trespassing legislation.
A lot of for the PSU in that capacity. Yeah, we had some theft arrests, some assault arrests. But most of it was dealing with, lower level kind of low criminality stuff, but yeah, having that bylaw status gives us the authority to operate on town property, city property. And then the agent program paired with that bylaw status gives us the ability to operate on private businesses at night, things like that. So we had roughly 350 businesses signed up to that program. So then if we see something on those property, we have the authority to go onto the property, arrest someone for trespass if it is warranted, or move them along depending on where it is. So.
And then your proposal with the one vehicle.
Yeah.
How effective would that be in a town this size?
and very effective, just because of in Grand Prairie, we had one vehicle going. And the occurrences and the occasions that we dealt with, those occurrences there. In Slave Lake here itself, it would absolutely be a visual presence, constant and roaming patrols, right? So.
Thank you.
Any further questions for council for Apex? Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So is the updated Apex security proposal in the package?
Yeah.
Okay, I found it in my email, but not in the package.
3,900 for 6 months.
The
For-
meeting follow-up link, Frankie.
Right, yeah, so 10 to 12, thank you, I got it now, 10 to 12 hours is 36,600 to 43,900, just for cost wise. There was the accountants answered Counselor Adams' questions regarding the security or liability, sorry. With an indemnification clause for the town. It was also requested of Apex regarding citizens on patrol, if there would be collaboration so that we're not overstepping. And also, or I don't want to trample on anything that community citizens have, and they did indicate that there would be able to rely on the public security unit members to assist with addressing a variety of concerns as well. So an additional resources is what was put in here. Just wanted to give a quick summary of some of the updates from the previous proposal.
Comment for Counselor Ferguson, if those are your things and you're gonna make motion, can you make 2 motions? Cause I can't spend that much money in 1 month and in case it gets voted down, make 2 separate motions.
Yeah, I'll speak on my palatability before I get to everyone else. So we did see a presentation from the drone company. I think for 85,000 for 1 month, it's not particularly palatable for me. When you go to 6 months, it's 41,000 a month. It's half the price. That being said, I agree. I don't think the drone is going to get us what we want right now. And I actually like the idea of enforcing the bylaw on the evening shift. So a lot of the complaints about bylaw is that previously bylaw or peace officers didn't work a lot of evening shifts. So we've heard that before, that no one's available in the evening. It's a common community complaint. Under the Apex security proposal, which is my preference, so that's kind of where I'm going with this on a trial basis, is that we look at 10 or 12-hour nightly coverage, month-to-month contract, and we get that bylaw piece at night. With the ability to force with the, I like the piece at through the trespassing legislation and the, as bylaw officers, that there is more of that enforcement piece that is within the realm, within the legal realm. So you're able to put pressure on someone without having that vigilante. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've got it. So I had Councilor Ferguson.
My thought with the drone is you can't hide from it. So it's easy enough when a vehicle comes, you jump behind a vehicle, wait till the vehicle drives away and you continue doing whatever crime you're doing. So we saw the presentation. They've had good success with it out in the Grand Prairie area. And I would like to have an additional measure to help provide a little bit of confidence to our industrial business community that's been hit so hard with crime. Just there's an extra set of eyes looking out for them.
My concern is that if we're looking on a limited budget, if I had all the funds in the world, there would be drones everywhere. Because it was very impressive. The capabilities of the drone, the presentation was very professional. I was very impressed with that. There's 2 pieces that, to me, I'm in a $40,000 range a month as a temporary measure. That's where I'm at and where these proposals are kind of falling in line to. And so the drone only offers coverage to commercial businesses. So it would cover industrial mostly and Main Street. And that doesn't provide to me, doesn't address the residential concerns that we're also having. I would like something more comprehensive. I think the ability to have a bit of the enforcement, even though it's not additional officers on the ground, is more appealing to me, because the drone piece, while it has the excellent video coverage, what it is it's lacking. It's lacking in enforcement. And I think it's that physical presence to me that I'm wanting to see more of it. And I think Citizens on Patrol is accomplishing a lot of it. Like I said, you have one vehicle driving around there, maybe two if we're lucky, maybe get some more vehicles, maybe you have 10. I don't know if it's a good night. You're gonna have all kinds of vehicles on the road. But to have a guaranteed vehicle from a security company, to me, makes sense, and something that's just a little more on the enforcement end. I think that's my preference. Counselor Adams.
On the math of it, what's an officer, 165K? Per year,
It's probably closer to like benefits and everything closer to 170-ish right now.
170 per year. So we're in the realm of 3 police officers on this spend. Just for equating it over.
3 police officers that the province of Alberta has short 400 RCMP positions,
I know,
so
but
national hiring.
I'm just
for them.
saying that we're talking over $500,000 a year.
And if we weren't in this state of crime, and if it hadn't been let to get this far, we wouldn't have to make this decision.
I agree. It's been
So
difficult.
I apologize for my directness, but if crime in town hadn't been let to get this far, we would not be here. And now we are
So-
here.
Just to be on the other end of it then, on the devil's advocate piece, I guess. So we're gonna raise taxes 6%.
Not
Right now,
necessarily.
today, we're good to go.
This is a trial.
So if you.
I know it's a trial,
It's
but
a
it's too.
month by month arrangement until the
Yeah.
2025 budget review. Perhaps we are so happy with the success of one of these companies, we cut an officer. So there are budget options. I'm not saying that we're going to. I'm not saying as a council that's palatable to any of us. What I'm saying is insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I am not.
Well, I
willing to
don't
do
think
that.
we're at the stage of insanity. We're sitting here
I-
trying to come up with a different result.
On insanity.
The just the discussion around here of going from officers to security force to drone to citizens on patrol, a combination of all of them, I think we're moving beyond the let's just keep it the same and not do anything. So I don't think that's necessarily a fair statement.
I meant to say, if we are throwing money, if not throwing money, if we
Paying
are.
with the RCMP.
If we are paying more to the RCMP, I believe we are doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Because we just had to fund back pay 500,000, so we are constantly contributing more. We just had $500,000 that we have to take every single year now for increased wages, and I understand that, and that's handed to us federally. We have limited municipal dollars, and in my mind, I want something that's.
Don't forget, that's
More
also 30% funded by the federal government as well.
It is 30% funded, but so far I'm not getting that additional service level, so.
Fair enough.
I'm not, if crime didn't get to this point, we wouldn't be here. But as a council, we need to adapt. And I think having these discussions about potential options is showing that we're willing to take a look at a variety of different opportunities. I don't have the appetite to have the drone and a security force for the cost of 125,000 for the first month. I'm not there. I am in the $40,000 range. I like the idea of the enforcement, so I'm still. My favorite proposal would be that of Apex Security currently. For the reasons I've stated.
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't, no, the only comment I was going to make was I feel we should be trying this for longer than a month. I don't think 1 month is a fair trial for anybody to see what's going to happen. If we're going to make a commitment, I would, whatever direction we choose, I would like to see that commitment in the 6-month range. I would like us to make sure that we're getting data from that. No, you hear me say it all the time. But something that we can work off of so that we can see what it's doing, seeing the impact of that investment and the results of it. So 1 month, I don't think we can see that result. I don't think we can make a long-term decision based on that.
And that's why I mentioned the drone would be 6 months and then Apex's month-to-month arrangement until the 2025 budget review. Counselor Gunler.
There's a month-to-month rate, so you love it, right? But if you hate it, you could end it, right?
30
So,
days notice is what's provided.
yeah, you don't want to lock in and say this is the worst thing ever, and now we're just throwing money at a solution that's not working.
They're willing to offer, again, so for the crowd that didn't go through the extended agenda, which is my fault because I make the agenda, but for the crowd that didn't want to go through the hundreds of pages, The Apex security agreement would be the public security unit on a month-by-month arrangement until the 2025 budget review, so that would be this fall, requiring only 30 days notice of termination. So effectively, you're at a 2-month window at any point in time, so that's the evaluation period there, just so that our massive audience here, mostly of town staff, is aware of where we are at in the process, and to Harry Bartlett watching online. Counselor Hughes.
Okay, so I spoke very passionately last week about this issue and how I wanted to see us do something. Last week, though, one of the proposals did look very different. We were looking at $1 million for security on an annual basis, but still not quite what I had in mind. So today, just hearing everybody's thoughts on the matter and kind of looking at the resubmission from Apex, I would agree with what Mayor Ward is proposing at this time as well. I think this makes the most sense to try a 1-month trial with Apex and see how things go. I think that, coupled with our Citizens on Patrol getting started as well, I think is a really good combination. And I also think that there's something to be said for maybe some more community engagement around this. I do like the idea of the drones, and I do, of course, want to see our industrial businesses supported in that way as well. Maybe there's something that we can do as a community as well. Like, let's let everyone know that we're operating this trial. Let's make sure everyone is involved, that they're reporting properly, and that we try to access as much data and things that we can, and see these groups communicate, cross-communicate with each other, so that we can make better informed decisions if we choose to go past a month. So that's just my thought with that. I'm not necessarily, game to spend the money on drones and the security. I think for the needs that I am hearing from the community members and where I'm sitting with talking to people, I would feel comfortable with something like Apex going on and just kind of gauging it from there. I think we do need that boots on the ground effect, and that, you can't set up an encampment here and those types of things. That is the, effect that I'm looking for from spending funds on this. So.
Counselor Adams.
Just a point of clarification there. So are you saying you only want to spend on the Apex one of the 43,900? Or are you saying you want to go with a combination of the Apex and the drone for 85 a month?
No, I'm just saying right now I'm more comfortable with trying Apex currently. I'm not opposed to the drone in the future if future data indicates it, or if our industrial businesses are here lobbying, telling us we need help. I don't know that I'm comfortable spending that amount of dollars today, is what I'm saying.
Counselor Moala.
This is a question for administration. I know in the, we did have we didn't have all 5 parties present to us. There was a couple of them that we didn't see that had very, very, very limited proposals put together for us. Was everyone asked to come and present to us, or no?
No, no one was asked. They just happened to have the opportunity. Correct.
Counselor Adams.
Actually, on that note, weren't we talking about having one of the bids fleshed out a little more or requesting it? Did they ever get back to us with that or no?
Any further follow-up or questions or information?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready at the motion part. So,
Yeah.
CAO, how do you want this motion to look then?
Well, I think just point of clarification, I would suggest if you're voting on a couple different options.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to separate out the options, and just to recognize that, at least my interpretation of Apex's quote is they've given you a monthly rate with 30 days notice, which essentially is your minimum needs to be a 2-month allocation or 2-month budget spend, right? Otherwise, you're giving them notice on day one, notice terminating their contract that you've just started on day one.
Yeah, it's a 2-month scenario. All right.
At a minimum.
At minimum. But it is month to month with 30-day notice, so you have to.
But recognizing you're gonna need to make a decision or advise at the end of month 1, whether you want to continue past month 2 and a subsequent motion to continue to fund.
Well, we've decided we're all very opinionated, so I don't think it the decision will be that, but if you want to make a motion, Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, I will make a motion to task administration to engage with Apex for a monthly security contract at a cost of, that'd be 73,200, because 2 months.
Mhm.
At 73,200 to 87,800. Oh, yes, and that's to be funded out of unrestricted surplus. Thank you.
Okay, so we have motion one on the floor. Is there any further discussion on motion one? Okay, I'll let everyone take a breath. So just receive Steve's, Councillor Adams, sigh heavily. All right, motion on the floor, as I see no other further discussion, call to question those in favor. All those opposed? And that is carried. Any further motions from council on this?
Of love for the drone idea at the moment, so I will reevaluate after we've done a kind of 1 month evaluation with Apex.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll entertain a motion to, oh, we don't need a motion, we just made one out of that. Never mind. Can we have a break, please? 5-minute recess? All right, we'll continue on with our meeting. Next up, we have the spring 2024 External Community FCSS grants. Hello, Darcy.
The organizations through the Slave Lake External FCSS grant applications. We do 2 calls for applications. The deadline for this one was April 30th, and the next one will be September 30th. We received 2 applications in this call. One of them from Northwest Central Alberta FASD Services Network Society for their PCAP mentorship. They applied on the last round too, and we aren't able to fund that. It doesn't fit within the parameters of FCSS funding. So that one's ineligible. And then the other one we got in was the Slave Lake Council Parent Advisory Committee, and they want to do a mosaic mural in the school. So this one I consulted with the province over just to see what we could fund, what we can't fund, and we can fund the volunteer portion of this project. So part of their project is recruiting volunteers, engaging community volunteers. And so they have asked for $12,000 for the project. We can fund 4,000 of it, which is the volunteer portion. So I worked with them on their application, and we had it so that it fits the parameters. And so my suggestion is that we fund $4,000 to the Slave Lake Catholic Parent Advisory Committee for their art mural mosaic.
Any questions from council on that? I personally like the proposal of the art mural mosaic. I think that's a great addition to the community. We've generally put funding through other things to arts in our community, and I think if the parent committee is willing to take on that. I know they revised after years of kind of no one taking the charge on that, and I know Ula's back with that, so
And Joanna.
as
Yeah.
well. So I personally have no issue with that. Councillor Adams.
Just a quick question, so I understand. This will be an art mural that's within the school or outside the school?
It'll be in the school.
In?
Yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
I will make a motion. I move that council approves $4,000 in external community grant FCSS funds for spring 2024 to the Slave Lake Catholic Parent Advisory Committee for the art mural mosaic project.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Next report. Playground and park service levels. And we have Joe, not Calvin.
Curveball.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm reporting on behalf of the manager this evening in relation to playground park service levels. The purpose of this report will provide council with information on the service levels for parks and playgrounds. A bit of background with mowing. The service level standards are clearly identified in the green space maintenance service contract the town has entered into with our contractor. There are essentially 4 service levels. 1, sports fields, weekly cutting and maintenance. 2, the high priority areas in town, cutting done every 7 to 10 days, obviously depending on weather. 3, the medium priority areas, cutting every 10 to 20 days, such as our smaller parks and playgrounds. And then lastly, our lower priority areas, cutting once a month. So industrial areas, some are empty lots at Fournier Place. Fire Smart crews have identified areas where they maintain the grass, primarily in roadside ditches. This is done through either prescribed burns or mowing and is considered as a separate service than what is provided by the contractor. Parks and playgrounds. Parks are checked between 3 and 5 times per week for garbage, maintenance, and other concerns such as vandalism. This includes the 4 quadrant parks, the 4 pocket parks, ball fields at Sinclair and Charity Parks, including parking lots and spectator areas, and the downtown area. As crews identify repairs required in playgrounds, they are to be completed by the MRC Parks crew in a timely manner. One of the greatest challenges with playgrounds is the sourcing parts for repairs, often requiring custom orders as manufacturers regularly change their products. Further, once every 2 years, the town carries out an external playground inspection, hiring a consultant to provide a report as to the playground in relation to the playground safety and compliance with the CAN CSA standard. Any deficiencies noted are handled by town crews to either repair or remove those components from service. The last playground audit was carried out in 2022. Multiple repairs have been done from that time, from that inspection in 2022, and the 2024 inspection will be done within the next few weeks. In addition to the playground repairs, crews are also to monitor and do the following: removal of grass and debris from fall protection surfaces, ensure the distribution of sand and material within fall protection under and adjacent to the playground equipment, keep trees trimmed around park areas, ensure the spray parks at Sugar Park and Hilda Eben are working correctly, make sure the washrooms at Hilda Eben are clean and supplies are full on a regular basis, ensure the features of the skate park, tennis court, and outdoor rinks appear to be safe and are well maintained. Preventive maintenance is planned and implemented in all park spaces. This can include staining wooden parks equipment, ensuring furniture is in good repair, timely removal of graffiti, monitoring fencing, etc. Trails are monitored for vandalism, general repair, and tree trimming. Garbage cans are emptied as trails are checked. Flowers are prepped and planted. Hanging baskets are a partnership with the Canets Club. Other flower planters are completely the town's responsibility. Once flowers are planted, they're watered and fertilized 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the weather. Tree planting plans are established annually, depending on budget considerations and availability of trees. Focus is on filling in gaps in high-profile areas, especially areas where trees have been removed. The current focus remains on Main Street and downtown, so we are working with a landscape consultant on a plan for Hilda Eben along with other parks. Tree trimming occurs throughout the year with MRC Parks crew carrying out small trimming and pruning as needed and identified. More complex trimming and pruning and large tree removal is contracted to certified arborists. Most arborist work typically occurs in the fall due to legislative requirements. Some of our parks have aging trees, and we are working with a consultant to come up with a plan for removal and replanting, succession plan, possibly some this year, only our hazardous trees, and some next year. Capital projects. As identified through the capital plan, 2024 projects include Hilda Eben Park, which will see the new paved walking trails installed, and that work began this week. Basketball lines painted on the basketball court. Security cameras installed monitoring outside the washrooms and splash park. Tree planting done once a plan has been developed by the consultant and the walking trails are completed. Barton Park will see new security cameras installed covering the playground and pump track. Sugar Park will see trail lighting installed on the west side of the park along the gazebo to 3rd Ave Northeast and some repairs to the rubber ground cover. Repainting of some of the structure and addition of a couple small fixtures will be added. The existing wood park signs, about 8 of them will be removed in our parks and replaced with steel frames with acrylic composite material. We're working with contractors to finalize the design aspect of this part. And then, as noted in the bottom here, any resident complaints about grass mowing should please be reported to the Parks and Facilities Manager, who will then coordinate with the contractor to have the concern resolved. All other complaints will be handled by town crews. That is my presentation.
Thank you. First presentation. Council. Well done. Any questions from council on the service standard? Councillor Hughes?
So you mentioned on here that all the parks are checked 3 to 5 times per week. Is that all of them, like the quadrant parks and the pocket parks?
I believe that's all of them. That includes the 4 quadrant parks, the 4 pocket parks, and the ball fields
And the ball fields.
at Sinclair and Charity Parks. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and when you're checking the parks, you kind of garbage, paraphernalia, etc., that they're safe. It's like literally boots on the ground walking through.
I believe so. They're out of the vehicle and doing access to those areas, particularly on our trails, because that's a necessity. And then graffiti and any other items, tree clearings, those types of pieces addressed,
Okay. Okay.
to my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Adams? Councillor Ferguson?
I don't know if this is a question that's better suited for you or for our CAO. But at budget, council had approved funds to take care of the weeds along the town boulevard on Main Street. Do you have any idea when those will be taken care of or when those are scheduled?
To be honest, Councillor Ferguson, I was in a brief conversation with that a few weeks ago. I cannot recall. I know it is on the radar of the manager and the department, so it will be actioned and is part of our program plan. And I don't know if I skipped over that somewhere in the presentation, but it is to be actioned.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Chova?
The council accepts the playground and park service level report as information.
Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have Calvin, service level summary for dust control, gravel roads, and street sweeping.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of the report is to summarize the service levels for dust control, gravel roads, and street sweeping. A little bit of background. Each year, the town performs a dust control program, gravel maintenance program, and street sweeping. These are essential part of maintaining gravel and paved roads. So I have it broke down into basically three parts. We'll start with your dust control. The dust control that the town uses is calcium chloride. We get it in and it acts as a suppressant. It retains the moisture to help weigh the dust particles down. It also acts as a road stabilizer. It'll bind the materials together with the aggregate and help stabilize the road. In town, we do all the gravel roads. We have about 17 kilometers gravel roads that we do dust control on it. And in the springtime, once the frost is out of the ground, we dress the roads up. Then we apply our gravel, which we do about 50% of the roads every year. Then once we address or put the gravel to it, then we hammer the dust control to it. The total application is about $90,000 for doing it once. That about handles the dust control and gravel. Then we move on to street sweeping. Street sweeping is basically two parts. The first part, we get our big brooms out and we take the bulk of the sand and the salt off the streets to begin with. Then we move into your little broom. We get onto the grass and the boulevards and stuff like that. Get all the sand off the boulevards from the windrows. Then we go back and sweep again, and then we get into our normal maintenance. So our maintenance on our gravel, it's usually 1 to 2 times or 1 to 2 weeks. All depends how the gravel roads get. We keep an eye on them weekly. When we get into street sweeping, arterials and mains and collectors and downtown cores done once a week, and then your deep residential and stuff like that is done twice a month. So that about handles the dust control and sweeping and gravel. The options are to report this report for information. The resources, we have 2 graders, 2 sweepers, a little broom, and some operators, and then we farm out our calcium and our gravel. And that's about it. Any questions?
Councillor Adams.
It's actually a tangent. Since you do this one every year, I'm getting kind of used to it, but the question I got is, where are we going with the test pile on the grinding? Did we actually decide that to move forward? Yeah, on the downtown core piece
With the millings?
No, grind down the lines and fill them with paint.
Oh, we're
Couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's in the line painting.
Yeah.
So we've been talking to a couple contractors. We're just in the middle of getting quotes.
Okay.
Right now, so.
All right, no, sorry, I know, squirrel. I just wondered. Thanks.
Councillor Adams.
Motion to accept as information.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you, Calvin.
Thanks, Calvin.
CAO update.
Okay. So again, as per normal, you have your CAO update report before you. I'll just hit some of the highlights. And again, you can refer to any questions you have after. So one item that wasn't included here under corporate services under communication that I'm going to highlight is we've made some changes, or you're gonna see a communication program come out in the near future about accessing services and where to call for the town. So quite often we've seen difficulties with which number to call, which service to call after hours, if I've got a water issue, or I've got a bylaw complaint, or I've got a parking complaint. And so a lot of those things will, residents will have difficulty where to call, or they'll call council and council calls their CAO, and then I have to call, and it just becomes very inefficient. So you're gonna see, we've made some changes to our main line numbers. So 8498,000 is basically the number will access all of those services 24/7. So if you've got that resident that has an apartment building that has water pooling up in the back and wants to call, or has an inquiry about whether that, you know, is a utilities thing or something, they can call that number, and through the menu system, push 1 for utilities. After hours, the menu shrinks to the after hours emergency sort of numbers, and they'll get that call right away. If you have a complaint regarding a dog at large, 8498,000, it'll get to the bylaw department, and the bylaw complaint will come through to our department. So you're gonna see some communication come in that. I'm looking for council to help support that initiative and to direct those inquiries to where they need to go to, as well as the community as well. So stay tuned.
There's gonna be obviously an advertising.
Yeah, we're gonna advertise it. You may see some bill inserts in your utility bills. There should be no lack of, and it's an easy number to remember. It's 1 number away from 311, but essentially providing the same service. 1 number shopping 24/7. You dial the number, it'll direct you or give you options as to where to push and where to go. So stay tuned. Communications also is doing their website redesign, so that's still continuing. We have land use bylaw, municipal development plan surveys are still ongoing, and short-term rental community survey number 2 closed with results compiled. Under ECDev department, our rural renewal. So in your report, there was a request, I believe at the last committee of the whole, for more detailed statistics as it relates to the types of applications and when we're receiving them and for who. So hopefully the attached graph provides that additional information needed. We also have the MD of Opportunity reached out and is asked to participate in our program. So a letter of support was filed with the government of Alberta, awaiting confirmation for the MD to join our program and be under our community's designation. The summer 2024 tourism advertising campaign, the campaign launched on May 2nd. We've spoken to the contractor for a potential earlier start for the 2025 season, and the campaign is to last until July 1st. The advertising budget was adjusted to reflect this change. Advertising at Charity Park Ball Diamond. So returning clients have been confirmed for the 2024 season. The department will look to sell the remaining spots via advertising on the town social media channels. In terms of HR and recruitment, our IT support analyst has been filled, our admin and assistant and HR and the CAO have been filled. Day camp counselors filled, park activity leader filled, municipal interns position has filled and has started May 13th. And we've acquired a 6-month term for a bylaw position, and we're interviewing currently for a peace officer. Also under human resources, the town is in collaboration with Métis 5 Nation to provide support to their National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. An email to town staff has gone out for anyone available to volunteer to help. I believe they're planning a barbecue for that event. Under our IT department, our Midle desktop phone replacement project is nearing completion. Under cybersecurity, continuous cybersecurity awareness through emails and training and phishing simulations continue. Changes ongoing in implementing the required multi-factor authentication access for IT resources and assets in the town as a requirement of our cyber insurance policy. So those things are rolling out as we sit. Finance department, the tax deadline for 2024 year is fast approaching. The deadline is Sunday, June 30th. Given that the deadline falls on the weekend, the following day is a statutory day of July 1st. The deadline's been moved to 5 p.m. on July 2nd. To provide additional time to pay taxes this year, the town office will be expanding its hours of operation starting June 17th until June 2nd. Our operating hours to the public will be from 8:15 till 5 p.m. Monday to Friday until July 2nd, sorry. We will be open during lunch hour and an additional 30 minutes at the end of the day. We'll be tracking the volume of persons coming to pay during these hours to assess the impact of expanded hours have to better serve our residents. After this, hours will return to normal. We'll be advertising this to the public in both the town office as well as social media and online platforms. Cancellation of tax auction. So the tax auction scheduled for June 7th has been canceled. Only one property remained on the auction list. All other properties have either paid in full or entered into tax agreements.
Can I ask my question there? So one of the properties that we were waiting on tax auction was one of the delinquent properties that has caused a significant amounts of crime in town. Do you know which property is the one property that's left?
I would, but I don't know if it would be appropriate to designate that in this or not. I know that there are other issues. The one property that's left has got a number of issues.
Okay.
And different legal issues that we're trying to work our way through. So
Okay, I'm assuming.
I wouldn't be able to say confidently as it doesn't fall directly to me.
Okay, my only concern is that there is one property that was on the tax auction list that has had multiple fines, multiple tickets, a variety of issues, and has finally got to tax auction with the hope that either someone will purchase or it will fall in the hands of the town so that it can be cleaned up. My concern is that this one property left is said property.
Yeah, it could be. The problem isn't as simple as the property falling to the town at the end of it. As there's potentially a number of other registered interests against the property that are making that complicated. So it's not quite as simple as that.
So I assume then continue following up with that property.
It's still, yeah, that matter is still being dealt with by finance department.
Okay,
Under operations are conducting 8th Street Northwest CC repairs, 9th Street Southeast CC repairs, sewer cleaning on 6th Avenue and hydrant flushing. Some of the project highlights, 9th Street Southeast water line replacement project is in progress. Have you seen the downtown revitalization? Phase 3 has been awarded and is in process. So I believe everything on the west side of that project has been completed in addition to the Legion. And I believe the current schedule for the east side, so the portion in front of the brick, is scheduled for a little bit later on in the summer construction, as we need to fix some drainage issues first prior to beginning that project. So
you know when the art installation will be here?
I don't, however, I know that they've actually started that today or recently here. So I think if you were to drive down Main Street, you might see the base or the foundation being prepped and or poured and conduit and electrical doing. So I believe installation on that from our project managers maybe a couple of weeks out, but it's moving along.
Go ahead.
We're talking about Main Street it's looking nice and it's expanding and it's almost here. Then we have Citizens Park. Can we spruce that back up again? Like we could add some of the amenities we took away and make it keep flowing all the way to the town. Is that something that's simple for administration?
Yeah, I believe we still have the assets that were there that were removed. Kelvin, do you
The
recall?
benches?
Because that was a couple citizens complaints to Citizens Park that there wasn't enough benches now. Now we don't have enough benches, so hey, we'll get you more.
If we have if we still have the assets, which I think I do, but I don't want to necessarily say definitively, then it's an easy fix. If for some reason we didn't retain those assets or they weren't to quality, it might be a budget consideration. Yeah. So, okay. Asphalt patching program and concrete repair program been awarded. Work is currently progressing. Concrete program is about 90% complete. Asphalt program is about 50% complete. Let's skip ahead to our fire department. So May 2024, we started to take delivery of the new AFRAX radio system. This has been an ongoing project and was slowed by hardware shortages and delivery issues. So expected to go live June 17th. Training in May was firefighter survival for all halls. A formal NFPA pump operator course was held in Slave Lake. 10 new operators are trained, 3 members attended an aerial operator course. Search and rescue participated in a search at Calling Lake in Athabasca, as well as a provincial support in Grand Prairie and Fort McMurray wildfires. Interviews and physical testing assessments were conducted for 4 fire paramedic students for next call session in September or the next intake. Fire department staff and equipment assisted at the Devonshire Beach cleanup. For their cleanup day, the fire department barbecue unit was used for Alberta Health Services EMS week in the town of Slave Lake short-term rental barbecue. Society members from all halls attended a casino in Grand Prairie. As a fundraiser, members taught wildland urban interface course to the Yukon First Nations firefighters. Under community services, under aquatics, the latest round of swimming lessons offered started on June 1st with 6 sets of school lessons. The end of school swims will start soon with also seeing a large groups. 2024 shutdown discussions currently taking place with the college with the goal of minimizing pool shutdown for the year. And the Slave Lake Sharks hosted a very successful swim meet on May 25th with 168 swimmers participating. Facilities and parks, both splash parks are now open. The NLC Convocation MRC took place on June 6th and 7th. Under recreation and programming, Summer Splash registration is strong. We have 42 spots open each day of camp, an average of 25 spots filled per day, and 997 total days registered. Our leaders in training programs also showing strong registration with full program of 16 registrants. Playground program is starting July 2nd. Candidate A plans are well underway, promotional materials out, and more info will be coming out in the next few weeks. And the summer program flyer will be out June 17th. That's my story.
Councillor Ferguson.
I have a question here for you, and it pertains to the arena. So I got an alert on Buoyant here that we lost the ice, unfortunately, with the power outage. But my question's more along the lines of, it says that the ice will be ready at the end of July. So that's almost 2 months. I'm just kind of wondering why the maintenance is scheduled to take that long.
For sure. So we have our director, Joe Dixon, for community services, might be best suited to give you an update on the MRC and the ice and what happened and what's the plan moving forward. Come on up.
Hello again, Mayor and Council.
How come you were less enthusiastic with that?
Hello
Sorry?
again, Mayor and Council. He said, why are you less enthusiastic with that one? Big sigh.
Please know the loss of the ice over the weekend is of great concern to me as the director in ensuring consistent program delivery. As I appreciate the arena is very important to our community members and the groups that we work with as the Recreation Department. Staff were notified late in the evening on Friday that the power was off in the building at the MRC. This notification came from the fire panel as the recently installed BMS system does not operate without power. Two staff, Calvin Beauchamp and Wayne Bacon, headed to the MRC awaiting updates from ATCO Power as to when power might be restored to the area. The updates were being noted on the ATCO app as to when the issues might be resolved. I was notified early Saturday morning. At that point, the latest service notice was for restoration at 11 a.m. with the time frame for power to be restored. Prior to heading to the MRC, I made some initial calls as to generator availability and cost from suppliers local and in Edmonton. Prior to Saturday, I had already created a file of potential suppliers based on the instructions from our electrical contractor as to the needs and requirements for the building should an occasion arrive. I just didn't think I would need to be dealing with those contractors so soon into my tenure. Please note that without a backup generator, we only have two options. One is to wait for power to be fully restored, which occurred around 5 p.m. on Saturday. And two is seek the delivery of a generator that has very specific capacity to power the entire building. 600 kilowatts, 600 volts, needs to be 3-phase, providing 800 amps. Once the unit is connected to the building, the transfer switch is actioned and the power for the MRC is then provided solely by the generator. The current system is not set up or designed to take a combination of smaller sized output generators, nor can we pick and choose which parts of the facility we would like to power by using smaller units or multiple units. This is simply the reality of the system that we currently have at the MRC. Any change to the system to accomplish this, the use of multiple units or sectional pieces of the building would likely be a major expenditure close to the cost of a backup unit being purchased. And that's after discussion with the local electrical contractor. That was one of the first questions I asked him, knowing that those may be questions that I received at the next council meeting. When the power is not operational at the MRC due to the power surge, such as on the weekend, we have other risks other than the loss of ice. I thought I'd share a few of those in discussion with the contractor and the questions posed to him on Saturday. From an Occ Health and Safety perspective, ammonia leakage and a threat to the safety of our staff. And to let mayor and council know, we called the Slave Lake Fire Department in to do an ammonia check to ensure the safety prior to our staff going in once power is restored later that afternoon. Second, damage to lighting. When power is single phasing, it causes the light fixtures to flicker, voltage is incorrect, thus damaging ballast and LED drivers. This can cause thousands of dollars in damage. To date, the quota received from the facility staff was about $2,500 in light replacement, as well as the cost of the manpower for that. And that was just as of this evening based on what happened due to Saturday's outage. Cameras and other electronics through the MRC can be damaged, again, due to incorrect voltage or power surges. Fourthly, all three-phase motors in the MRC will run single phase when there's a power loss. This will cause a spike in current and can cause damage to motors and pumps. Overloads will trip and they need to be manually reset by staff or contractors before they run again. Heating units run on three-phase power. If power is lost, these will run single phase as well. These units can get damaged if this happens during a cold snap in winter. If the building can freeze up, water and sprinkler lines can burst. 6 ice plant compressors run on three-phase power and will not run during a power loss. The ice has now been lost 3 times due to power interruptions. I was not able to fully verify that, but that's what was shared to me by the contractor. When these events are happening in the MRC, there's a risk of power loss. We were fortunate in that the NLC graduation ceremony was 24 hours prior, and had that happened the evening before on the Thursday night rather than the Friday, we would have not been able to host that event in the building. The other second last concept is the thought of having a power source when we are an evacuation center at one point in the year. And lastly, and again, really important in the Occ Health and Safety matter, the ammonia detector in the building currently doesn't work when there's a power loss. So obviously this creates a situation for staff in the building. And as I mentioned, we had Town of Slave Lake Fire Department come to the MRC just to ensure it was safe for staff and contractors to enter the space and restore the power once it came back. So that was really assistive. I want to address, before I get to your timelines, Councillor Ferguson, rental of generators this size can be difficult to secure and may have to come from Calgary or Saskatoon or other parts of the province. 2 suppliers have been identified and verified by our electrician to have the units that meet the specifications that we would need for temporary power in the building. The cost for the rental of the units in the price that I will provide account for the cost of the unit, the transportation to Slave Lake and return, call out of staff on their end to ensure that the unit is ready to go, fueled, and ready to be picked up by the transport supplier. Both of these suppliers are closed on the weekends and after hours, so there is potential extra cost there. That prep time to ensure the unit's ready to go prior to loading, transportation from the load up location to Slave Lake and returned. And once the service agreement is signed, we as the town are responsible for the day rate, and once loaded and is en route, we are charged. So consideration I had to make is, depending on our hourly updates, if it'd be another 2 hours, it'd be another 2 hours, was the consideration that our rate would be somewhere between $7,500 to $9,000 as the day and week rates for a rental of a machine of a generator this size are very similar. The one supplier did offer us a 20% discount if we had to turn the truck around 4 or 5 hours into the journey. But really, once we're signing that agreement, we're on the hook for about that amount with those 2 suppliers. Unit availability is seasonal. One sales rep I spoke to said that if he's got a unit that size sitting in his yard for any longer than 3 to 4 days, his supervisors are on him because of the fact it rents out at about $24,000 to $26,000 a month. So it's a unit they'd like to have off the property and in circulation. And lastly, depending on the location of an available unit, delivery time to the town of Slave Lake would be, and I quote the supplier, on the road in a period of 2 to 3 hours and delivered to the site within 7 to 8 hours of call out. And obviously longer if coming from Calgary or Saskatoon branches. So moving forward, my apologies, our release could have been a little sharper in relation to the potential timeframes for when the ice would be back in. The one group that contacted us that has our main rental was notified by my manager that they would be the first to be notified. And we did hope that it would be prior to that. But after this particular weekend, I wanted to create a little bit of a buffer. The last thing I want to do was provide a time frame that we couldn't deliver on and then be viewed poorly in relation to the situation. Should be noted, the ice removal process has begun. It will be fully out by the end of the week. I've spoken to Calvin, and we are going to accelerate our time frame. The buffer in there is because next week we'll have the stands pressure washed, which I think is long overdue, and feedback from some of the community and the staff. And there's that need to then heat up the arena, ensure we get dry time prior to paint. And then once we paint, giving enough time to cure so that we're not, in essence, spending that time and money and energy to beautify the arena, only to have it not withstand the day-to-day wear and tear once the season starts. If that goes well, the plant will be turned on the week of the 2nd of July, and the process of ice would start that week. Mid-July, somewhere between the 12th to 15th as a general time frame. Ice would be available to be skated on and played on. And that then provides the surface to be built up and actioned prior for a good week before our camp starts later in the month. Gifts. So again, the end of July was a buffer, and that I will admit that could have been communicated a little better within the release, that this was maybe translated or communicated as a worst case scenario, but the hope of the department was sooner than that. And I will own that as part of trying to get out a release in a timely manner, but that was missed on my part. I will be submitting a request for a capital project for 2025 for consideration of a backup generator. In hindsight, I believe I made the right and the correct decision with the information that I had available to me at the time and throughout the day on Saturday in relation to making the call on how to proceed. Factors, of course, cost and delivery time of a unit, and the ice temperature held for a number of hours, with the outside temperature being on the low side on Saturday. That was one of the few benefits of it being a rainy, poor 14-degree weather day, is that it held for a number of hours at the temperature. As we took the temperature manually on the ice, it held for a number of hours at a level at about 24, 25 degrees, which is 5-6 degrees below the threshold of it's gone. And then obviously paired with hope that power would be restored much earlier, that would have created a combination where we didn't lose the ice. So, and there's been some lesson learned. For me, the details and the requirements of our current electrical system at MRC, the requirements and the realistic costs of delivering timely service to the building in future, and the need to improve our ammonia monitoring and supply staff with portable monitors. That's something that's actually, in speaking to Alex at the town fire hall, they've just upgraded the portables that they use, and they'll be providing us with 5 or 6 units that we can have in the building, and that will better meet our health and safety requirements. Also to learn the ancillary cost that we could have with the surge as mentioned. Second to last, the importance of hockey and ice availability to the community that I'm now a member of. And lastly, reminded that the delivery, if and when the community decides to make a capital purchase of this size, that the order time is 30 to 45 weeks. So we would want to be concerned about that because it could be well into winter or at the end of next winter, depending on when we decide to proceed. And again, if we have this happen on a weekend where we have a tournament or something in the building, we are looking at and potentially a longer call out time in the middle of winter if there's a foot of snow on the highway. So I thank you for the opportunity to make this report and answer your questions.
Thank you for the detailed report. I do appreciate it. So just kind of following up on that, was there any consideration about putting ice in the second arena just to limit the unavailability and the disruption to our user groups?
I think part of the issue with that, Councillor Ferguson, is we've got summer programming starting and the dry floor is being used through July to run that active programming. We currently have, other than our scheduled skates that are for the public, I believe we just have the one booking the once or twice a week for, I don't know how to say this correctly, senior hockey, old timer hockey.
Old timers?
Yes. Okay. I wanted to skate that line. So we don't have a large number of bookings. And I think because we've got the summer program on the dry floor in the arena over and above our programming that usually takes place in the dry floor of the usual space, that was a consideration. I can talk to staff. It hadn't been something I discussed because of that.
I was gonna say, I appreciate the detail regarding the generator information when we were presented with it at this past capital budget. That level of detail with regards to the requirements, I would say wasn't fully there. I think there's a better picture with regards to the additional damage, what happens when the building goes down. Because to me, at that time, the capital asset purchase that came across was 400K or 500K for a generator. And everyone at this table thought, are you kidding? Especially when you take into factor how much it does cost to put ice in, and that it's a once in a, and that, but the more detail about the system and if there's a way to change the system so that it can just be the one, but if they can't, then that's what we need to know so that we're able to communicate why such an expensive generator may be
And
needed.
I appreciate it. It's not for lack of a better term, it's not a sexy purchase. It's a unit that sits available and kicks in when it's needed. That expenditure is roughly 300 to just over $300,000 for the unit itself. And then that other extra amount is for securing the site, the pad and the hookup.
And at the time, it had happened once in whatever, call it 50 years. I don't know how old the arena is, so it was a one-off, but now it's happened 3 times in 2 years. So it's no longer a one-off. It's something that's required.
Yeah, just appreciate the detail. That's right.
Since we're touching on that, I still do not understand why we need a massive unit like that. That's more than we need to power a gas plant. That's huge. So my concern on it would be, one, we're not efficiently splitting out what needs to run and what doesn't need to run. As far as the phase issues, my concern there would be using phase monitoring relays so that you're not running single phase from a 3-phase. And that's protecting the equipment. That's a lot more cost effective than dropping 400 grand on a unit just before everybody gets behind wanting to do this at budget.
That's why I said
There's
expect
gotta
the
be-
detail to come back.
There's got to be better options to this. And I don't know if our contractor's supplying us with all of it, if we need to go to a secondary contractor, get an opposing view or what, but that still floors me that the demand is there for a unit that 600 watts and 600 kilowatts and what was it, 800 amps?
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a monster.
It does seem like a monster unit, Councillor Adams, and I did, having reviewed some transcripts of the previous presentation and your concerns were shared at that time. That was why I tried to address directly some of those pieces. I did ask a question in my meeting on Saturday morning, and I think I briefly touched on it. What are our options to section out so that we can only power certain pieces? It's basically in essence a bad illustration, but close, having to rewire the house based on what we have currently. We have the ability to either power it as is or sort of not at all currently with our generator. And that's the way the system was designed and built when it was built. This is what I would call an inherited situation, both for council as well as myself and the department. I wish I had other options to create. I think even if we had a sectional piece, yes, it may address the issue of the rink, but if it occurred on a weekend when we had a graduation or we had a tournament, it still doesn't, our ability to compartmentalize and try and provide power to certain areas wouldn't allow us to execute events or situations within the building that we would be required to do. And that's my concern. Again, it occurred on a weekend when we didn't have to cancel a great deal of programming. But my concern is, and again, it could not happen for 10 years or it could happen twice in 10 years. That the next time it falls on when we have an event and it creates a fairly massive impact on the event and the community, much more so than it did on the weekend. But I'm happy as the director to seek a second opinion in relation to options for the facility. Absolutely, I have no problem with that. And happy to share those results with mayor and council at a later date. Absolutely.
I think too, I always feel like coming from private sector, whenever I look at municipalities' bids on all of it, they're way higher than what it is when I phone. And I work in oil field rentals. So like a 270 kilowatt gen, we're building 5 right now. We're just at our meetings and getting stuff approved. It's about $85,000 Canadian for one 270 kilowatt gen. I'm not saying we double that and the price doubles. Maybe it's a bit more, but I think there are maybe cheaper options when like Town of Slave Lake's calling, here's your price. And I just, when we look around, I urge you to, get 5 or 6 quotes and see what if we can bring that down a bit, because that number is more palatable now that this keeps happening, but it really sucks to put that through.
Well, and I appreciate that. The 2 quotes that I'm working off were previously secured quotes, and the first point of business for now was to secure whether or not there had actually been a price increase from when it had been issued to us previously, because there's been an inflation rate of anywhere from 5 to 12 points on equipment lately. It was just to secure that I was using numbers that were somewhat related to past quotes. And again, very happy to go out and secure quotes from a broader area if that's going to be
Don't
something.
say you're from a
that's
municipality. Be like, hey.
Interject here, a capital project of that size would require typically an RFP for that to go out. So a bidding from not only local, well, probably wouldn't even be a local supplier anyway of something of that size, right? But from a larger, group. So advertising of that requirement, if it wasn't already included on like our RMA or canoe plan, which has already secured preferred pricing on a number of things, including a lot of the equipment that we utilize. So that RFP process may have already transpired and taken place, but anything of that sort of north 125, 150 goes out to a formal.
I get that, but the company building our stuff out of Colorado is not looking for municipality stuff to do it. They're just waiting for the phone to ring and they build 5 of them.
It'll be anyone that basically subscribes to the Alberta Purchasing Connection and puts a bid in, no different than asphalt paving or anything else we do, right?
That's unfortunate.
So we will make the best use of the downtime we have, not only to restore the ice service, but also to do the maintenance that we can while we have the opportunity to do it. So that when we have additional service offerings, like our expected improvement of the sound system throughout the building, but particularly rink 1 and rink 2, which were identified on our tour with the supplier from Edmonton, and then which we received a really reasonable quote. And they also did some service work to save us money and deal with some issues that had stemmed from poor installation and some jerry rigging over the years. So looking forward to now that money, we have approached the family out of the grant from the remaining grant provided. I'm just waiting word for that. And then once we have that, within 30 days of approval and an email reply back, within 30 days, we'll have them on the ground doing the installs and creating a situation where we have improved sound in each of the arena, the dry floor. We also have the ability to have that centrally monitored and sound controlled and announcements made from the front desk to provide a safer environment on tournament weekends and overall. So it's really a comprehensive plan. They've also will be using whatever existing equipment that was still working and functional. They were very keen on going through the building with myself and Calvin as to what was salvageable to try and keep the costs down. And they do arenas across the province. So we were happy with that. I think the community, with a bit of patience, come mid-September, we'll see a much improved facility, as well as looking and working with a local flooring contractor to do some much needed flooring in the entrance to both rinks 1 and rink 2, not only just for aesthetics, but for practicality and easier to clean and to look sharp. So I think it will be a much more inviting venue than what it is now. And I appreciate the patience of the community. As I say, hopefully we will not need that buffer, Councillor Ferguson, but in respect for our staff and our contractors, we don't want to push for work that doesn't stay and we don't get value out of the final product because it just doesn't keep.
I'll have a suggestion to play off of Bryce here about using Arena 2, but I understand it's used for the pad and Arena 1's getting renos. Suggestion, if we have enough summer ice rentals, we could reach out to the curling rink and rent that, and they could use that for some space. But I'll let you guys play in that realm because that's not my job. Back to summer ice. I'm being told by multiple ice users we can't rent summer ice. Whenever we try, we can't get ice on weekends. And I know council set out to try to do this for maximum utilization. So for us to find out on the weekend, you can't rent it on a weekend when the parents aren't working to bring their kids there. That was a shock for me, the few of us that were together. So if we could elaborate on that administratively of why we're not renting it on weekends, that would make us all feel a lot better if there was a good answer.
We've had a couple of weekends without arena staff. I will be honest, and I'm not trying to politic this without context. As far as dates and which staff may have been approached in relation to the bookings, I'm limited to how exactly I can address directly about the discussion. I'm not trying to offset and avoid a direct answer to that, but I would need to take a look further into the details. I've clarified with the MRC staff, both at the management level and as well at front desk, that we need to ensure that these options are open to the fullest extent possible. We do have a staff member at MRC off. We are trying to backfill a position. I spoke to Human Resources today about potentially posting to have some casual staff for the arena there to ensure that we can have that available as much as possible through the summer season. And also as part of that, it will be in our summer guide promoting the summer rental options to try and promote and fill those spaces, as well as for birthday programming as well, because that wasn't an option and promoted in the spring guide, and it needs to be promoted in the summer guide. The Summer Ice program, I will review the data and compare it to 2022. I'm a fan of the Summer Ice program. I will provide the data, and that decision then falls mayor and council's feedback as to if it's a program I'd like to see continue. I'm not going to come to you as a director and say, okay, we didn't come out even, therefore I think we should put it down, because I think it provides many other options for the community, particularly in the size and the hockey nature that we have, that it provides benefits. So that is a decision. I will solely provide data at the end of the year in one of my reports, and then look forward to the discussion that ensues.
Steve will be pumped for your data. So the simple answer, it's a staffing issue.
I think from the report that I've got over the last 2 days is we've had some times with staff booked out where we knew we did not have staff in the building to be available for ice.
I don't want to speak for council, but I'll speak for council. That for us kills us, because if it's more staff, hire them. Like we went in, and you weren't here yet, so I'm just generically saying this. We went in to keep this open year round.
Yes.
Right. And so part of that last year, sitting in this room, was it has to be open on weekends. It has to be open at the same times as winter to make this work.
If the doors are open to
The ice is open.
We want the rest of the facility to be
Yeah, so
available. Absolutely.
We thought it was going like that, and then we found out it wasn't. So it's like it's set up to fail.
It feels like it's set up to fail.
If I may, Councillor Gramlich, I think what I'm learning in my first 2 months here is that, as with many arenas, and same like we had the lifeguard issue coming out of COVID, we have issues, and many rinks across Western Canada are, I know they were when I was with the regional district, of getting people to come in and work on that maintenance side, particularly too, because on our facility, it's not only at MRC, it's summer parks in the summer. So you have staff sometimes that only want to work on a winter shift, and that's fine too. We currently are looking at how to get those staff that we have on board trained with Ice Operator 1 and spend that money to ensure that we've hopefully got that knowledge base and we can grow it out, other than our one senior staffer, which to me is not succession planning at the moment. And that's a concern that's been identified, and we're going to work on rectifying that.
And I think it's a great point that you brought up the pool. I know that Darcy and Quintasha was here. There was a whole bunch of initiatives for the pool to correct staffing issues.
Absolutely.
And what had to happen was getting a little bit creative. Instead of this is how we always do things now, it's like, okay, here's incentives for our lifeguards to be trained. And what has resulted in that as a 6-month trial. And I remember the former director coming to us and saying, hey, give me 6 months, 12 months to try this. And it worked. So from our perspective, when we get the data back from Summer Ice over the last 3 years, we actually don't have good data from Summer Ice over the last 3 years now. Sorry, Steve. And the reason why we don't have good data is there were 4 weekends last summer that it wasn't open. And what happens is, it's typical small town. If it's not open one weekend and you can't book one weekend, they think you can't book the rest of the year. So now we have a communication problem to address as well. Again, inherited for you, so I'm not meaning to attack that, but I'll speak for council, and council's intention with Summer Ice was that if the door to the MRC is open, the arena is available for booking. And that is when talking about the true cost of Summer Ice, so that we can evaluate that during budget.
Yes.
If let's say the cost is 20,000 or 30,000, want to pick any number. Well, if it's not fully staffed and it's closed 30% of the time,
maximize.
That's not the cost to operate Summer Ice. So we want to know what the cost is to be staffed properly so that the doors are open. And I do agree with that training. More operators, providing opportunities for people to advance. If there's pay adjustments, whatever happened for lifeguards, I don't pretend to say that will translate over to maintenance staff. But that was a program that creativity worked, tried something different, and I would appreciate seeing
And the data in relation to summer ice will be presented will be on a couple levels. One will be maximized out at some of our potential with a full opening to see where our ceiling is. The other is to look at the actuals. Part of that will be a forecast based on us not having the closure in July. So there will be the asterisks on that particular timeframe. And then looking at areas of improvement and potentially putting out to the community to get feedback from them as our users to, and if there's some current themes which have already been identified as problematic, then those will be addressed moving forward in summer 2025 and then use that time over the winter to use the example of the work that Darcy was able to accomplish at the pool as an example of what we can try and do on the staffing side, not only on the ice side, but as well on the program side and having people to get people involved on the dry floor side and some of our other programs. And I think that's more what I'm familiar with from a staffing perspective. We've got this space. I think part of that is having people and staff and some of the providing opportunity to our youth in the community to be program staff that are on the floor, and whether it's the dry floor for 4 hours or even sometimes in our skates, to get them involved. And then we have a greater likelihood of attraction and retention for them as potential staff employees moving forward. So. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for the?
More questions
CIO?
pertaining to that?
Is
Need a motion, yeah.
there anything else for CIO update or related questions? Councilor Hughes?
Motion to accept the CAO update as presented.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. Up next, management task list.
So again, like before, you have an updated list before you with updates as applicable. Open for any questions you may have.
Ferguson,
Motion to accept the management task list as information.
motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. That is carried. Moving forward into question period.
Feel like we already had that.
I have questions. Sorry, I have questions. I'll go fast. So I have a question about temporary signage and protections from COVID-19 and if they have all been removed. It's a bit of a leading question. And the reason why I ask is I'm asking why we still have the plexiglass around the front desk. The reason why I ask that is, to me, it seems very inaccessible. It distorts and reduces speaker volume for those hard of hearing when they're engaging with their front desk staff. And I personally believe it to be unfriendly and welcoming, and statistics also show that. So I'm just curious why we still have the plexiglass out there, because it wasn't up there before COVID.
Are you trying to get Steve on board by dropping statistics?
Yes, I am. So that is my question. If you don't have an answer
So
for that, that's okay.
I don't have the answer for you. My assumption would be that any of those decisions in any workplaces that those where some of those protections have been put up in place, were usually and that remain in place are usually at the request of the employees.
Okay.
And I would suggest that that's likely the case here. I can find out and report back.
Yeah, I don't believe
right?
it puts the best foot forward for our town when you're coming into our town building. Even the bank tellers don't have those up anymore. I know at the Royal Bank where I go to, that's not up. So there's been a removal of a variety of them, and I personal belief is that, so I would like the answer as to why the plexiglass still remains. Also, it's very dirty. As a side note, it needs to be cleaned. So that would be my question there. Councilor Craig.
I'll be less leading. Some of the new town signage, I thought we were all done, but we're not. Our own town building has our old logo on it. Like the operations building.
The operations building.
Yeah, let's take that down.
Yeah, I had noticed that. I'm not sure what the plan was for that. I will make a note of that as well.
Okay, so we'll get answers to those. Okay, we have no more motion for that. Moving along, committee minutes, Tri-Council Health.
We have this the group met this afternoon with representatives from the MD, SARG, as well as EMS were there. Kate from RH PAP reported that the Knowledge Now virtual event set for June 18th would be canceled, but is working hard on a rural community conference that takes place in Wainwright on October 8th. to 10. This is a biannual conference that focuses on attraction and attention of our healthcare heroes. Darby from EMS reported that they recently hired 13 people in our region starting August to fill some of the gaps throughout our area. Not surprisingly, housing is a problem. Getting many of the recruits to commit to Slave Lake. Many of the staff can find temporary lodging while they work in Slave Lake. The new ambulance bay will offer 8 rooms to staff, but they can only be used while they're on schedule here. This is a huge barrier to being able to retain and commit to our community. On May 24th, members of Tri-Council hosted an EMS appreciation barbecue as part of the rural. On May 24th, members of Tri-Council hosted an EMS appreciation barbecue as part of Rural Healthcare Week. Volunteers helped serve roughly 75 people. And AHS has given us information that we will be receiving 4 more international nurses. We should be expecting 1 at the end of the month and the next 2 sometime in August. Housing has been a major hurdle again. Many of the nurses have come here and come here initially by themselves, but are looking to bring their family and spouses within the next couple of months, which is another hurdle. But so far with the next 2 nurses that are coming, we have found some housing for them, hopefully. And I think that's it for Tri-Council Health.
Tourism.
Okay, so the Slave Lake Region Tourism Society is hard at work, just continuing our plans for Beach Fest, which is happening this coming August, the August 11th and 12th weekend out at Devonshire Beach. Our schedule of events should be released hopefully beginning of next week. We have completed a working session for updating our strategic plan about 2 weeks ago. We did that through grant funds that we received from Travel Alberta, and our finished plans should be ready to share sometime in July. We are also moving forward right now with our regional tourism growth plan and are beginning presentations to municipalities and First Nations starting tomorrow. So we see the MD of Lesser Slave River tomorrow, and this will carry over in the coming weeks with a presentation also coming to Town Council. We are very excited to announce that our self-serve kayak kiosk called the Kayak-O-Mat system will be delivered next week here. So one of these self-serve systems will be placed down at the handicap access point out on Devonshire Beach for the summer months. Our second kiosk will be delivered out to the Martin River campground as well. So these will feature a mix of options for people to rent from. There will be single kayaks, sit on top, solo, tandem kayaks, and a variety of paddle boards as well. So we're very excited about this initiative to finally get it here and get the people enjoying it and market that out and continue to grow our tourism in the region.
How much for a tandem kayak?
I believe it is $40-ish. Don't quite quote me, but ballpark. And that's for 2 hours.
Perfect. Ali, you got
Yeah.
20 bucks?
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the comedy show. I will make a motion to accept the committee minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Call question in favor. And that is carried. State of the Lake, Ali, you're on a time limit, sir.
Okay. Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon, I had the opportunity to volunteer with the Slave Lake cleanup crew. I want to say I was very impressed speaking and getting to know their members. Most of the members were not from here, but showed a real and pure care and pride for our community. I cannot commend the group enough for their commitment to clean up Slave Lake. I will say that the work we did that afternoon was satisfying and fulfilling. If you'd like to volunteer and be a part of the Clean Up Slave Lake movement, join the Slave Lake and Area Crime Watch page.
Fabulous.
One more thing.
Oh.
So some people out there think that being a counselor is fantastic. It's great.
Who?
Some people, I don't know who. Today is my son Zane's 8th birthday today, or 9th birthday, sorry. What a dysfunctional dad. I just want to say a happy birthday to him. He is almost a teenager, and I think lots of teenagers, when they get that age, they think about running away. I'm hoping while he's on YouTube, he sees this video, and I'm wishing him a happy birthday today. Dad loves you. Happy birthday, Zane.
Counselor Choba.
Well, on that birthday note, I think it's only appropriate to also wish my colleague, Councillor Hughes, a happy birthday as well, because her birthday was yesterday.
Did you try running away?
I'm tempted. Some days I'm tempted to run away. Thank you.
Councilor Choba, always with the thoughtfulness.
Yes.
On that note, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? Call the